Yeah, bro.
Okay, hello. Hello everyone, we are live right now. Let me just post this on Twitter here. Okay. 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 Here we go.
How's everyone's Friday so far?
It's good.
That's good.
Yeah.
Okay, here we go.
Hey, bro, you gonna wear green because it's St. Patty's Day today?
That's what he's got on.
Okay. Okay. Okay, here we go. Let's say hello everyone. I hope you guys everyone's having a good St. Patrick's Day. Okay.
Everyone's having a good St. Professionals Day.
Well, we're gonna do Railroad Baron here in a moment.
Hello again.
I'm just
What can I help you with?
want to buy the ammo for the rifle here really quick.
Catches your eye.
Ammunition, come on, quickly. Where is it here? Rifle cartridges, okay.
After something else too?
Yeah.
Okay, here we go. We're joining that Railroad Baron.
No time for that.
Also gonna have another part of GTA Chinatown Wars up right after the stream tonight, guys. Can't stay for long, but nice CJ cosplay and cowboy hat combo. Maybe I'll have a drink after an incoming midterm and a test afterwards. See ya. Okay, I'll see you, Mr. Waifu. And, good luck on your, exams. Thank you for sponsoring my channel. What's up, Pro? I have two questions. I know you said you tried to play Call of Duty World at War, but you got a strike for it. What was your overall opinion? Second, could a Sniper Elite V2 remake work with Sniper Elite 5's engine? Yeah, I mean, I don't see why they couldn't do a remake. What is it, about World at War? World at War is like, you know, my favorite, it's my favorite, Call of Duty game. I love World at War.
It's one of the greats.
Thank you, Justin, and thank you, Eric. I heard that Reddit online hackers on PC are raining boats and setting players' feet on fire and crash their game if they get reported. Yeah, it's a disaster. But it's also on console. We got cheaters on console too. They're not hackers, but they are. The cheaters are using oftentimes off-the-radar glitches.
I hope we don't have them tonight.
Probably will. They love to make your life a living hell.
Yep. I'm using the Lancaster right now because I just wanted to prove a point with this rifle here. But this rifle literally makes it so easy just to get headshots on people. Okay. What the? Oh.
Ah.
Okay. Ah, damn.
Shot.
Good shooting there. Okay. I think I blew off his hat already, but yeah, Lancaster just makes it so easy to get headshots. This is why I don't really use this gun.
Damn it.
Lean in the target a little bit here. Ah. Damn.
He's the one who killed. He's the one who killed me.
Can get a shot on him.
Thanks.
Well, I personally like, you know, bolt action rifle. I like, you know, guns like this generally. Okay. Oh, great.
Ah, damn. Chain. Chain.
Ah, come on. Oh, man. I'm gonna go after this person now.
Probably took my kill.
Get a shotgun out for when I... Yeah, I'm gonna get a shotgun out for that when that guy uses when that guy uses that.
Oh.
Got him.
What the?
Got that one.
How?
Got you.
Okay.
Well,
Oh, come on. No, it's... What the? I think I'm getting that glitch where the game volume all of a sudden turns really loud. Is the game volume really loud all of a sudden, guys? Is it really loud? The soundtrack? That's an annoying glitch that sometimes happens.
damn it. That's that shit.
Oh, come on, seriously, that the fact that he didn't even get hit once during that whole thing, come on, like,
Oh my god, I can't even get up.
Yeah.
yeah, it's a weird glitch, it's a weird one, where the volume randomly turns up, I don't know why, it's an audio bug, and just, what the... Okay.
Damn it. I had her.
Come on, seriously, no, that's
Yeah.
just stupid at that point, that's just stupid. Shoot him with a shotgun once, nothing, and I get shot and I'm instantly dead, oh man. He's still up there?
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
still there. Good. Hit him.
I got him, I'm on the train again, but I need help.
Yeah, I'm on the chain.
Take the tonic, okay. Trio, you're, hang on. Okay, you're third place. Get on the train in the seat.
Fuzzy's using,
Here.
Fuzzy's using Deadeye too.
Okay,
I'm
good
first
work,
now.
Brandon. Just maintain that lead there. Oh God.
Watch it, watch it. It's got dynamite.
Carcano. Yep. Uh. Seriously? You just... Incendiary, you guys saw that just now.
Wait, who was it? Because I must have to use it.
I think it was the
because
guy
that
with the Carcano, but my horse is
Got
being
that.
so stupid right now.
Damn it.
Yeah,
What-
that
what-
guy.
What do you... Get on the horse. My God, I'm gonna kill my horse in a moment.
Animal cruelty.
Yeah. Him again. The JPEG.
That was when he decided to use incendiary, so pull that explosive. Okay. Okay. Oh, no. Okay. Oh my God, I'm gonna. Okay.
What? Headshot.
God damn. Come here with that.
What the? Oh, now he's
That's
pissed now. You know, what a hypocrite.
Yeah,
He's pulling out the
yeah.
explosive arrows now when he was the one that was using incendiary before.
Yeah.
I think that was me because he was using way different march shark. I can't even hit him. It's my mistake.
Oh, come on.
Oh. Beat that guy. Didn't even get a hit on him.
God damn.
Oh,
Stay
come
away
on,
from it.
seriously, you know, come on, he didn't get hit during that. Oh man.
We're gonna win this.
Yeah.
Imagine getting mad when someone's using the same stuff you're using to kill people.
Okay, there we go. Let's see, Pro, how do you
Yeah,
handle
I'm just
depression and
fine.
anxiety? Asking because I'm having trouble dealing with my mind and mental health.
Right?
Well, I would, what I'll tell you though is, one way, like, I wouldn't say that I was depressed ever, but I did have a point, where I was just, like, unhappy, and I was just not in a good mood. I was kind of sad, down. This happened, like, years ago. Yeah, you might have heard me tell this story before, but basically the reason I was, like, in a down mood was because I was, you know, I got really popular on GTA Online, but whenever I tried to, you know, do anything else, basically what would happen is, you would get much less views, and I would have, like, people just show up to those videos and just complain, and just say, where's GTA Online? I want to see GTA Online, I don't want to see this game. And, you know, the harassment got really bad. Like, sometimes people would just complain, other times they'd curse me out, just for playing, like, you know, just for playing a different game. And so what eventually, it got to the point where, you know, I said to myself that, you know, I'm gonna do what I want to do, regardless of what people, you know, think. And so, you know, I'm gonna play whatever game I want to play. And what?
Yeah, I can definitely relate to the same situation. What happened with me at Watch Dogs Legion online and stuff.
Yeah, well, it happens when a channel moves away from its original content and starts trying to do other stuff. There's some viewers that are supportive, obviously, but then there's also always like backlash, and there's always people that get pissed off for no reason, and you know, it's the internet. But yeah, that was like a you know, that did happen a bunch of times to me, and you know, eventually I stopped listening to those people that were just complaining, and I did, you know, what I wanted to do. Also, whenever I am feeling in like a down mood, I do try to find a friend that I can talk to if that helps.
Yeah, I get like that too. Sometimes I'll have the down moods and stuff, but yeah, coming to these parties actually
The thing
helps
about
with my
that is
numbers.
sometimes, like, when I'm dealing with stuff on my when I'm dealing with stuff on my channel, like like if there's something that's happening on my channel that's like I'm just in a down mood about, you know, stuff like that, I find it better to actually talk to my friends than sometimes my parents about stuff like that. When it's really personal things, I find it more comfortable to talk to my parents instead of my friends on that. And the reason is because parents will understand me better when I talk to them about personal things. They obviously care about me and support me, but they don't understand YouTube that well. So trying to explain to them, you know, what's going on is not, you know, the best way. But like my friends would always oftentimes understand that. But when it's something personal, you know, it's the best to talk to my parents about stuff like that. So, you know, talk to your parents or, you know, any close friends that you have. That might help you out also. I hope I gave you good advice in that regard. Thank you, Victor. Shame Dr. Friedlander got away so easy. People would have been doing Michael a favor. The DLC seems dull overall, in my opinion. Yeah, and the thing about that is, I thought it was supposed to be 6 missions, but it turns out it was 5. Thank you for the super chat, Victor. Thoughts on the U.S. involvement in the Vietnam War? Well, that's a very complicated question to ask, Dark Soul. I don't really want to get into that stuff like that. If I ever do a playthrough of Black Ops 1 again, I can definitely talk about the history about that. But the thing about that is, you know, the Vietnam War was a messy, you know, dumb war. You know, we shouldn't have gotten involved in that. I just don't think we should have necessarily been there. But there are a few things that people don't tell you about the Vietnam War that a lot of people actually don't know about. Like, for example, when it comes to the Vietnam War, everybody thinks that America invaded Vietnam, but that's not entirely true. Because at that time when the Vietnam War actually happened, Vietnam was actually 2 countries. You had South Vietnam, which was not really a democracy. It was more of like a Catholic dictatorship. And then you had in the north, you had, you know, run by Hanoi. Their capital city was communist, run by Ho Chi Minh. So Vietnam was really 2 countries at that time, and North Vietnam was invading South Vietnam. And the U.S. was allied with South Vietnam. They started sending military advisors, and then eventually they sent, like, their own soldiers there. So the government of South Vietnam wanted us there, but North Vietnam was attacking at the same time. So I think it was personally a stupid war. I don't think we should have gotten involved, but when people say that it was an American invasion, that's not necessarily true, because it was North Vietnam that was invading South Vietnam, and the U.S. didn't invade North Vietnam. They stayed in South Vietnam most of the war. So it was the North that kept attacking. But regardless, you know, it was a dumb war that, you know, a lot of bad things happened in that war, and U.S. government also messed up. They lied. They lied about the Gulf of Tonkin incident, which drew them into the war. They lied about Agent Orange, which got so many American soldiers killed, or sick over time. So it's just, you know, really bad time in American history, just in general, to sum it up.
Yeah, the Agent Orange actually, like, kind of like
Thank you.
made people look kind of deformed as well a little bit.
Well, it was it caused cancer. That's what it did, and it caused cancer. And the U.S. government to this day refuses to actually pay people, like Vietnam veterans who are sick from it to this day. They refuse. They don't get compensation for that. For a company famous for storytelling, the Drug Money DLC is a lackluster, disappointing story. I really hope they put more effort into GTA 6. Thank you, Fernando. Thanks, man. Oh yeah, there was definitely massacres that happened in the Vietnam War. There was that one infamous massacre, American soldiers that killed you know, Vietnamese people in a village. There's a lot of, I think it was multiple villages that were involved, and that village was not Viet Cong supported, but it was just it was just a bad conflict overall.
Are you guys in a price session?
Okay, see here.
Yeah, my
Run
grandmother's
public,
actually
run
half
the
blind
public.
because of the Vietnam War and stuff. They were born in the, what's it called? My dad was born in the Vietnam War and stuff, and my grandma's went half blind because of a Russian tank that was bombing a village, and shrapnel hit her eye.
I'm sorry to hear that.
That's right for your grandma, man.
Yeah. But she's still alive to this day, though.
Hey, Pro, do you know about Africa's history and the Europeans take over the poor countries? What do you think of it? I'll answer that in one moment here, Kai. But there's also one thing that I want to say, last thing I'll say about the Vietnam War. What people don't know is that the Vietnam War technically ended with the Paris Accords, but didn't end. What basically happened was the U.S. and North Vietnam and South Vietnam sat down together, and they signed a peace treaty. And after that, the U.S. had basically pulled out of Vietnam. What happened is 2 years later, North Vietnam broke the treaty, went back on it, and invaded South Vietnam. And at that point, the U.S. didn't want to go back, and South Vietnam just got completely overrun. But the thing about this is, I'll tell you that, you know, the Vietnam War is such a complicated subject because it was a dumb war. But there's also things that like people don't tell you about the war. You know, there's a lot of people don't know, for example, that North Vietnam was attacking South Vietnam, and a lot of people also don't know about like the horrible tortures that the North Vietnamese did. You know, they were very brutal. You know, you had the Hanoi Hilton, which is, you know, a North Vietnamese prison, and the soldiers were just tortured so badly. There was an American soldier that actually went on North Vietnamese television, and he was basically saying that he was perfectly healthy and that he was fine and they were being treated humanely. But when he was actually blinking his eyes, he blinked in like Morse code, which basically was saying that he was being tortured. So he couldn't say that live on TV, the North Vietnamese TV, but he did say that. So it was and the Viet Cong in that war, they were actually even worse than the NVA, the North Vietnamese army. The Viet Cong were a rebel group that was mostly from South Vietnam, though some of their members were from Cambodia. And what the Viet Cong would do is they were the ones who were responsible for most of the traps. So when you see the Vietnam War movies and you play the Vietnam War games and you see all the traps, the Viet Cong were responsible for that. And the Viet Cong were notorious for their torture. You know, you'd much rather be taken prisoner by the NVA than the Viet Cong. Because the Viet Cong were just so gruesome. There was actually a Viet Cong sniper called the Apache. That's just what she was nicknamed. And what she would do is she would just capture American soldiers and she would just nail them to trees. That's what she would do. And she would just torture them and just make them scream. And she would do that to try to draw out American soldiers and just kill them. And eventually she was killed by Whitefeather, who was an American sniper. And he shot her multiple times, just her body multiple times, just because he wanted to be sure that she was dead. But Whitefeather said that was the only time in his life that he actually enjoyed killing somebody, because this woman was evil. You know, she was horrible. She tortured and killed so many people. So, you know, history is just not all black and white in that regard. We probably shouldn't have been in Vietnam. It was probably a stupid war. But at the same time I have a big issue when people consider like the Viet Cong freedom fighters. They think, oh, the Viet Cong no, they're not freedom fighters. They're terrorists. You know, that's pretty much what they were. You can make the argument we shouldn't have been in the Vietnam, okay? But to say that the Viet Cong were freedom fighters, you're an idiot if you believe that. You know, these people killed their own people. They tortured their own people. Freedom fighters are not going to kill their own people. So that's pretty much what I'll say about it. And what people don't understand about the Vietnam War, last thing I'll say really quick, is that not all Vietnamese support the Vietnamese government. If you go to South Vietnam, even to this day, which is technically one country, Vietnam today, the South Vietnamese really don't like the North Vietnamese. They don't like the communists. And most of the Vietnamese, you know, Americans, for example, they really hate communists, and they're mostly from South Vietnam. They are, the capital city of South Vietnam was called Saigon. And when the communists took it over, they renamed it Ho Chi Minh. But if you go to Ho Chi Minh today, if you visit the city, most of the people still call it Saigon. They refuse to call it Ho Chi Minh. So this idea that the vast majority of the Vietnamese had supported the Viet Cong and the NVA, and that they supported, like, you know, communism, is just nonsense. So the communists were mostly in the north.
My dad still calls it actually Saigon to this day.
Yeah.
Actually.
Yeah, your dad's from South Vietnam, right?
Yeah. he's
Yeah,
from South
so there you have it. You have more proof of that. It's like, you know, like I said, you can make the argument that we shouldn't have been there. It was probably a stupid war, but I personally pisses me off when I see people think that the Viet Cong were like freedom fighters.
No, definitely not. They're terrorists, basically, is what they are.
Okay.
Even my dad said that too.
You missed 3 super
And
chats.
let me over here. Okay. I was
Oh yeah.
I don't know.
Speaking of the
see
Vietnam
here.
War, Pat, you ever heard of Operation Wandering Soul in Vietnam?
Well, I'm
The
not gonna
Americans
answer
are
that
using-
right now. I'm gonna answer the other guy's question because I promised him that I would answer it.
All right.
Ah. Oh, there you go.
Let me see here. There's the one guy. One guy was asking me about Africa's history and the Europeans' takeover of the poor countries. What do I think of it? Well, there was a lot of different Europeans countries had colonized Africa. It was from the British, the French, the Germans, the Belgians, the Italians. Am I missing anybody else in that regard there?
Spanish.
The Portuguese, yeah. Did the Spanish have any colonies in Africa? I know the Portuguese did.
The Spanish never had a lot. They had a couple of colonies along the coast of Africa, but they had some.
Yeah, but,
like Morocco and stuff.
Do you know what the most evil European colonizer in Africa was? A lot of people actually don't know about it. It was actually Belgium. The thing about that is that when you look at a small peaceful country like Belgium today, you don't think that a country like Belgium could cause such evil, do such horrible things, but they did. The Belgians had controlled the Congo. That was their colony. And you had King Leopold II, which King Leopold II had murdered somewhere between 1 million to 2 million Congolese people. So he was, they would just work people to death. They would just slaughter them. The Belgians did that. And, you know, a lot of people are surprised by that. A lot of people actually don't know that the Belgians were just so cruel in their colonies.
Oh,
But-
you started a bounty? That's fine.
Yeah, I started a bounty here. But it was just, and the thing is, I'll tell you, these European, you know, governments, these stupid monarchs, they caused so many problems in Africa because what they did was, if you look at a map of Africa to this day, if you just look at all the countries in Africa, you notice something very strange about the countries. What's so strange is that look at the borders. The borders in the African countries are like completely even. They're like straight lines. And you almost never see straight lines anywhere else in the world. You look at Europe, there's no straight lines on European maps. You look at Asia, there's not really straight lines anywhere. But Africa is like that only part in the world where there's like straight, even lines on like maps. Because borders are usually more complicated. They're rugged, they're just, you know, they bounce around. They're never straight like that. But those borders are straight. The reason that the borders are so even, the lines like that, is because those countries that are in Africa today, they were former colonies. When they became independent, they became independent countries. And so that's how the Europeans had carved up Africa, as they drew those lines. And so what happened is they put a lot of tribes in colonies that didn't like each other. So they would put two tribes that hated each other in the same country, in the same colony. And then when the Europeans left, these tribes started fighting each other, and that's why in Africa you have so many civil wars, because the European colonizers had basically just put them all in the same colonies, and then when they left, they all started fighting each other. So the European empires have just caused so much problems in Africa that can still be felt to this day.
By the way, you missed 3 super chats.
I know, I'm gonna read them right now. I hope that answered your question on what I thought about that, Kai. Let's see here. Can you lower that, please? I'm sorry, I don't know who that is. I hear like a phone in the background. Okay, let's see here. Will I ever play Cyberpunk? Maybe one day, Valdo. I don't know. When I get around to it, maybe I'll give it a chance. Thank you for the super chat.
You want to be very careful playing that game. You're gonna get hit with claims for certain scenes.
Yep. That's the reason I don't stream it.
So, how's your days, guys?
Uh,
Good.
Happy St. Patrick's Day, Bro, favorite God of War game? I've never really been into God of War, so I can't really answer that question, and, no, I haven't gotten around to it, Mario. Wasn't the draft used during the Vietnam War? Yes, it was, Dark Soul, and that's one of the stupidest things, you know, about it, is that, you know, imagine being sent across the world to, like, to fight in a country that you don't know that much about. So that's why the draft during the Vietnam War was so controversial. And the thing about the draft in the Vietnam War is that the draft in the Vietnam War was also racist, and it discriminated based on class also. So in the Vietnam War, though, if you were not white, you were actually more likely to get drafted, and also if you were poor, you were more likely to get drafted than if you were rich. If you went to college, I don't believe you were drafted, but if you didn't go to college, you would be drafted, which that's, you know, that's discrimination. You know, you can't do something like that. Just because somebody goes to college and somebody doesn't mean that the person that doesn't go to college should have to go to the draft. That's stupid. But that's why, you know, that's why the draft was just so unpopular in America, because so many people had gotten sent there and they didn't want to go there.
What about this, Pat? Have you ever seen the movie called Forrest Gump before and stuff, where they sent, of course,
Yeah, I've seen that one.
the autistic guy to Vietnam to fight? Was that something that actually happened in the Vietnam War as well, like sending people with disabilities over, or is that just in the?
Yes, it was like a special government program. I forget the name, but I've seen it on Subway Street's channel.
That's actually kind of messed up, sending people with disabilities over to go fight war.
Thank you, JBK, for sponsoring my channel. One of the biggest what ifs in GTA history. I don't know who's making those noises, but there's just a lot of background noise coming from somebody's mic. One of the biggest what ifs in GTA history, I would say that probably the biggest what if would be what if Vic Vance survived. That's probably would be the biggest what if. There was also what if, you know, Nico didn't kill Faustin. You know, that's another big what if. What I'll say about that is if Vic didn't die, I think the story would have gone pretty similar to how it did in Vice City. The only difference is I don't think that Vic would have betrayed Tommy at the end. That's what I think.
I do.
Can you call it?
Yep.
No, I don't know who that is, Gunner. Hello, Pearl. How are you guys doing today? Really enjoying the Sniper Elite uploads. I like your new addition with the Axis invasions. Thank you, man. I'm glad that you enjoy it.
You gonna pay for this?
I'm surprised no one's tried to kill you yet.
I picked the wrong guy. What the heck?
Oh, thank you, Feline. Cyberpunk's too glossy, even a dirt is glossy. Well, I never really was, I never really was into it. Oh, and, oh, Gears of War? I only played Gears of War 2. I played that a long time ago. I didn't really play any of the other ones.
Oh, crap.
What are your thoughts about that ridiculous conspiracy theory about the Titanic? What's the conspiracy now? I'm curious about this.
What next? Did Titanic survive?
Do I think Leopold was the most evil European king? One of them. He was definitely evil. You know, he killed between 1 million to 2 million Africans. So he was a you know, horrible person. He invaded other countries and just he was definitely one of the most evil monarchs. I don't know if I would. There are a lot of. It would be very hard to pinpoint exactly who the most evil monarch in history is. If we're not counting dictators and we're just looking at kings and queens, the most evil monarch, it would be pretty hard to because there are so many evil monarchs. It'd be hard to, but Leopold would definitely be on that list. He'd definitely be up there. You know, the top 10 most evil monarchs, Leopold would definitely be really high on that list. So it was, no, I didn't know about that, Lance Vance.
Alright, I'll take this one with me. I got this one. Okay.
In terms of combat, who do you think won in the Vietnam War? The U.S. did. The U.S. won the vast majority of the battles in the Vietnam War. Like, a lot of people think that the U.S. had just gotten destroyed in the Vietnam War, but the NVA and the Viet Cong had suffered way more casualties than the U.S. did. The U.S. won 90% of the battles in the war. The reason that Vietnam was lost was because the U.S. signed a treaty, like I said, and they pulled their forces out, and then North Vietnam broke the treaty, invaded South Vietnam, and then nobody in the U.S. wanted to go back. And you can't really blame the American public for not wanting to go back, too, because, you know, who wants to go back? So it's, and fight again. So it's, that's pretty much what had happened. Very similar to actually what happened to Afghanistan, where, you know, they, you know, nobody wants to go back. So it was that,
Yeah, many people keep saying, oh, we lost the war, this and that, and if we did, our troops will salute in a different way. And the reason
what time should I deliver them?
wait until, I guess wait until 4 minutes. Wait until 4 minutes, we'll deliver the targets.
Yeah.
Hey, Pro, I just got another new Lego set. I just ordered. Pretty cool.
Hey, Fernando.
There's a new Star Wars one coming out with the scene from Mandalore. A new Bo-Katan Lego figure.
Oh, I heard about that.
New mold and everything.
I think I'd seen it.
You know what, I'll tell you guys also a fact also about Vietnam that a lot of people actually don't know about. The communists in Vietnam actually hate the communists in China. A lot of people actually don't know that. They think that because China is run by a communist party and Vietnam is a communist party that they get along, but that's not true at all. The communists in Vietnam actually hate the communists in China. And the communists in Vietnam were always much more closer to the communists in Russia. They considered the Soviets their allies, not really the Chinese. And it was because China had historically been an oppressor of Vietnam, and so they didn't want really anything to do with China. And so they were scared that China could possibly annex them. That was also another a fear that they had as well. But
yeah, that's what makes me.
But I tell you though, a lot of people actually don't know this, that Vietnam and China actually went to war. And that was right after the US actually left. So it was like a few years afterwards. It was like in the 1970s. And basically what had happened was the Khmer Rouge, it was another communist regime in Cambodia. The Pol Pot, who was the dictator of Cambodia, had just murdered millions of people. And Pol Pot, what he was doing is he was killing anybody who knew how to speak a second language. He was killing anybody who was of upper class. He was killing doctors, lawyers. You know, he was just targeting people who he considered elites in his society, but he was actually destroying his country and just killing so many people. And what happened was even the communists in Vietnam were horrified by that, and they invaded Cambodia to actually stop the genocide of Pol Pot. And what actually happened was China actually backed Pol Pot, and so they invaded North Vietnam. So literally, Vietnam invaded Cambodia, and at the same time China invaded North Vietnam. And when China actually went into North Vietnam, they got destroyed. So it was the Chinese were not expecting the resistance that they got, but they got destroyed really badly. So look that up. Sino-Vietnamese War. A lot of people actually don't know about that conflict. It's an unknown conflict in history.
Yeah, like I did say, I'm part, well, not part, quarter Vietnamese and quarter Chinese, so it's kind of a weird, you know, mix together, since the Vietnamese and the Chinese really don't like each other.
Well, it's more about the governments. The governments really don't like each other.
Yeah, because I remember you did say that's a little bit of a funny, what do you call that, mixed, that's what you told me, when I told you that once.
Well, it's because the two countries have had, you know, a lot of conflict with each other for some time, but the communists in China and the communists in Vietnam never really liked each other.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Didn't Britain join Vietnam as well?
No, I think Australia was involved. I don't think I don't think Britain was involved, but.
Oh. I thought I saw those. Probably just different pictures, like those British tanks.
see here.
He needs to live with the other one.
I'm always open to a new Sniper Elite game. The American people will learn to mind their own business. Well, the thing is though is that you would be surprised is that
Gentlemen, you need to deliver it.
the thing about this is that America historically, my country, has had a significant amount of foreign policy disasters. Everything, you know, the U.S. had so many foreign policy disasters from the Cold War to today. It just hasn't been, it hasn't been good. There's been so many disasters that have happened in so many countries. Like the United States, for example, overthrew the Guatemalan government because they thought the Guatemalan government was controlled by the Soviets, and when they tried to find proof of it, they weren't able to find any proof. So that's really why they overthrew the Guatemalan government on just mere suspicion. So there was and that's just one example, but there has been like a lot of really bad American foreign policy disasters. But the thing is though, is that America has had successful foreign policy, interventions. Like, the most successful American foreign policy intervention was World War II. The second most successful American foreign policy intervention, I would say, would be the Korean War. Like the Korean War, we won in the Korean War, and we never really wanted to, take over North Korea. It was more about just keeping the North Korean. MacArthur did that more of it. He invaded North Korea, but it was the mission was more to stop North Korea from taking South Korea, and we succeeded. And South Korea would not exist today as a free and prosperous country if the U.S. had not intervened in the Korean War, because when the U.S. intervened in the Korean War, if you look at a map, like 95% of South Korea was controlled by North Korea. So that was, an example of a good intervention. But the thing is, though, is that ever since then, we haven't really had that many good interventions. There's a lot of really stupid wars, a lot of really dumb things that have happened, and it doesn't, at least in my country, it doesn't really matter who you. I'm gonna get a different horse here, but it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter who you vote for, because both parties are going to support military interventions, and both parties are going to support world police. So it doesn't really matter. I'm not against like helping other countries necessarily, but when it comes to sending military into other countries, no, I wouldn't say that I'm necessarily for that. But doesn't really matter, because both parties will support it no matter what. So that's the thing about it, is people don't understand. More Americans are against world police than you'd think. Like I hear like a lot of people think that most Americans support America intervening in other countries, but that's not true. A lot of Americans don't support it, but our politicians, regardless of who you vote for, will still do it. So that's what I'll say about that. Okay, let me see here. Gotta check my moonshine business out. Okay, I'm gonna go over the moonshine business.
I'll join back in like 10 minutes.
Okay, see you.
How are you going to your moonshot?
What do I think of the Iraq War? Well, I'm not really gonna talk much more about, because that's more modern events. I don't really talk about modern events. I try to stay away from that because there's a lot of drama and stuff like that regarding that. But the only thing I'll say about that is, without getting into too much details, I just think it was a stupid war. That's just what I think was dumb. The thing about that is, you guys want to know something really stupid? Is this is not the first person who's actually asked me this question. I've been asked this question. What did I think of the Iraq War? And I've said before that I think it was stupid. When I played that game a year ago, I played that one game a year ago. What was it called? The Dark Pictures House of Ashes. It was a horror game that takes place during the Iraq War. And what happened was, when I was playing that game, I had like a bunch of people that just came in the comment section and started accusing me of like supporting the Iraq War, and I don't even know what the hell these people were thinking, what was going through their mind, because I've never supported it. I thought it was stupid. I just happened to play a game that was set during the Iraq War. Doesn't mean that I supported the Iraq War, but I had a bunch of people in the comment section come in and started accusing me of supporting it, which was stupid. But
You will not let a little thing like a barrage of bullets get in your way, huh? When I tell you these are valuable customers, you will
thank
look after every
thank you, Deck. There, I can't read your super chat. You deleted it. Favorite Gears of War game? I don't think I really have one. And well, I don't know what part of the revolution you're talking about there, Victor, but there was like a you know, a lot of wars throughout history have just, you know, there's this, it's you never really have a war without horrible things happening. Is every war, like, really bad things happen. It's just horrible. But about the Haitian Revolution, though, it was
Where's my horse at?
the reason that the Haitians had revolted in the Haitian Revolution was because what happened was when France became a republic. So when France abolished the monarchy, when they had the French Revolution, the one in 1789, what they did was the French had abolished slavery. So a lot of people actually don't know this. People think that Great Britain was the first Western country to abolish slavery. Technically, Great Britain was one of the first to keep it abolished. But technically, it goes to revolutionary France. So France, during the Revolution, abolished slavery. And what happened was when Napoleon came to power years later, he was the French dictator. He had he made slavery legal again. And what happened was, you know, Haitians had been freed, and then they had gotten enslaved again. So they had a right to rebel. They had a right to overthrow the government. Here's about it is there's actually a very interesting story that you can actually read about the Haitian Revolution, where what actually happened was Napoleon was dealing with an uprising in Haiti while he was fighting a lot of countries in Europe at the time. It was at the height of the Napoleonic Wars. And what happened was Napoleon had actually sent over Polish troops into Haiti. And a lot of people are probably thinking, Polish troops, what? Is Napoleon French? Well, yes, he was the French dictator. But the thing about it is Napoleon didn't want to send his best soldiers into Haiti. He wanted to keep his best soldiers fighting in Europe at the time. And so he sent the Polish legions into Haiti to put down the uprising. And what happened was Poles were allies of Napoleon. So Napoleon didn't have a lot of friends, but one of the few friends that he had were Poles. So Poland was generally an ally of Napoleon. It was one of the few countries that France was allied with at the time. So it was Poland was more of a French protectorate, but Poles were friendly towards the French, where the Germans, the Prussians, the Austrians, and the Russians were hostile towards the Poles. But anyways, Napoleon had sent some of his Polish soldiers into Haiti to stop the slave uprising. And what actually happened is when the Polish soldiers had gotten there, a lot of them refused to shoot at the Haitians. They refused. They wouldn't. If Napoleon had sent the French soldiers in, the French soldiers would have probably opened fire. But the Polish soldiers refused. And why? Why did the Polish soldiers not want to shoot? The reason the Polish soldiers didn't want to shoot is because a lot of the Polish soldiers felt very sympathetic towards the Haitians. Because what Napoleon miscalculated, what he didn't realize, is he didn't realize that Poles were heavily oppressed. You know, before Poland, because Poland became an independent country for a few years after Napoleon had invaded. And, you know, when he kicked the Russians out and the Germans out of Poland, Poland became an independent country for a few years before it got taken over again. And so in that time, you know, Poles were being heavily oppressed by their occupying powers. And what happened was the most oppressive were the Russians. They were the most oppressive towards Poles. The second most oppressive were the Prussians, and then the third less were the Austrians. The Austrians were generally the most I wouldn't say friendly, but they were the ones who were the least oppressive towards Poles. The Prussians, which made up, you know, modern day Germany, and the Russians were the most brutal. The Germans, for example, what they would do is they would force Polish people to change their names to German. So today in Poland, you can still find a lot of Polish people that have German last names. So they'll have like a Polish first name, but they'll have like a German last name, and they're not even, anything, they have no German ancestry. And the reason for that is because their names were actually forcibly changed to German. But when it came to the Russian part of Poland was the worst. Because what the Russians basically did was they did Russification. And Russification, what that was, is that the Tsar had, let me see if I can find the cigar here, gotta get the Deadeye back. So the Russian Tsar, what he did was, he banned the Polish language, so it was illegal to speak Polish in your own country, in Poland. And what he did was he also outlawed the Catholic Church in Poland, which Poland was largely a Catholic nation, and he tried to force Russian Orthodoxy into Poland. And what happened was the Polish aristocrats are some of the biggest traitors in Polish history. Like, the Polish aristocrats were just scum, because the Polish aristocrats, the Polish nobles, had like betrayed their people, and they sided with the Russian Tsar. Because the Russian Tsar offered them land and privileges, and so the nobles just basically sided with the Tsar over the Polish peasants. And so for example, the Polish nobles converted to Orthodoxy. They stopped speaking like Polish and just spoke Russian. There's actually, if you actually watch Pawn Stars, there's actually a Polish medal that's in Pawn Stars that was actually given to the Polish aristocrats that collaborated with the Russians. But anyways, going back to Haiti. So what happened is, if you were like a Polish family, for example, and your kids were not allowed to speak Polish, the kids had to be taught Russian specifically, not Polish. The Russians were trying to destroy Poland culturally. They were trying to just destroy Polish culture, Polish language. And so what happened was, if you were caught teaching your kids Polish, you would be sent to a work camp in Siberia. It's in the middle of like nowhere, in just a frozen tundra. You'd be sent to a work camp where you would die. And the Russian Tsar did this. Like, when I tell people this, they think, oh, the communists did that. Yes, the communists did do that, but the communists were not the ones who created the first gulags. A lot of people don't know that. The first gulags were actually created by the Russian Tsar, the monarchy. You can look this up if you don't believe me. Look up, who created the first gulags. It was actually the Russian king. They weren't called gulags under the Russian king. I think they were called something else, but they were essentially the exact same thing. So the gulag system was actually created by the Tsars, the Russian kings, and it was created as a system where they could send people that they didn't like very far away to the far eastern parts of Russia and just work them to death. If you ever played the game Modern Warfare 2, the original Modern Warfare 2, Captain Price is being held in a gulag that was actually built by the Russian king. So it was built by the Russian king. That wasn't built by the Soviets. So that was like an example of, like, a lot of people don't know about this. They don't know that it was the king who started the gulag system. When the communists came to power in Russia, they took the gulag system and expanded it, but they weren't the ones who created it. And so this is what it was like in Poland. If you spoke the Polish language, the Russian king would just send you to a work camp where you would die. And so what happened is, when Napoleon sent the Polish soldiers into Haiti to put down the slave uprising, a lot of the Polish people felt sympathetic to the Haitians, because they realized that the Haitians were being oppressed by the French, and they couldn't do that after they had their country just carved up and just destroyed and just been oppressed and just had their family members deported to work camps. They couldn't do that. They couldn't bring themselves to just oppress another people when they've been oppressed so much. So that's why Poles did not shoot at the Haitians when they were sent into Haiti. And what actually happened is, when the Haitian Revolution actually ended up failing, a large part because of that, because the Polish soldiers didn't, or Haitian Revolution succeeded, I should say. The French response failed. So the Haitian Revolution succeeded, and they were able to, overthrow the French, and they became an independent country because of one of the reasons, largely because the Polish would just refuse to just follow the French orders and just shoot. And what happened was, the Poles who refused to shoot, they couldn't go back, because if they went back to Europe, they'd be killed for not following orders. And if they so they had really nowhere to go. And what ended up happening is, when the Haitians took over the island, they actually deported all white people off of the island except Poles. Poles were the only white people that were actually allowed to stay in Haiti because of that, because they didn't shoot at Haitians. So that's an interesting thing in history that you don't really hear about much. So that's, I hope I explained the Haitian Revolution to you and that, but that's a very interesting, thing that you don't really hear about, that, you have one people that were oppressed, and they were sent to oppress another people, and they refused to do it. So that was, Also, there really isn't a Polish community in Haiti to this day. There isn't really one, but there are Haitians to this day that actually have, like, Polish last names. So it's not a lot, but you can actually find some Haitians that have Polish last names, and that's actually why. A lot of people are a bit surprised by that. It's like a Haitian might have a French first name and like a Polish last name. It's because of that, because they're descended from one of the soldiers that stayed on the island.
I'm gonna step out of the party for a little bit and stuff. I gotta go to the store and stuff, but I'll be back in probably about 20 minutes. All right.
Okay.
All right. See you in 20 minutes. All right. Have fun, everybody.
That's fine.
You're a history teacher stuck in a gamer's body. Well, thank you, Diet. But I mean, I don't think I could really be a history teacher. I just like I like reading history and occasionally like telling history, and I like to read about history that's not really that known. You know, like interesting things about history that you might not know about, which I like to read, like you know, read stuff like that. Hey, Professional, I'm late to the stream. Have you mentioned the potato famine already, or that it was already caused by Britain? Thank you, Seymour Bush. I actually do not know that much about that specific subject. I know that there was a really bad famine that happened in Ireland, and that the British Empire was responsible for that. It was mostly due to potatoes. I think the famine was caused. There was like a disease that grew on the potatoes. I think it was something like that. But I honestly really don't know that much about that history. But I do know that a lot of Irish people did die in that. It also caused a lot of there's also a lot of Irish people that immigrated into America at that time because of that. Or I think it was was America a country at the time? I think it was, yes. And we get Red Dead Redemption 2 on the PS5. I don't think we'll ever get Red Dead Redemption 2 on the PS5. Okay. Do you guys know, is there any events that are coming up?
Let me check. The only one pops up is Day of Recon 9 minutes.
You mean Day of Reckoning?
Yeah.
That one sucks. We'll avoid that one.
Alright, I'll be right back.
Pro, not to be rude, but it just seems like Polish propaganda against Russia. That's not Polish propaganda against Russia. If you talk to so many Polish people, they literally see no difference between the Soviets and the whites. The whites are the monarchists. It was the monarchists who created the Gulag system in Russia. People don't know about that. The Tsar was a scumbag. Like, you know, Nicholas was a scumbag. He was not a good man. Anyone who thinks that the Tsar was a good man, I don't know what they're thinking. Tsar was not a good man at all. You know, this is what the Russians did. They did Russification. And, you know, and you're saying that they wanted, like, one tribe? They had no right to come into Poland. Poles didn't ask them to come into Poland. They invaded our country. Well, that's where my parents are from. But they had no right to come in there. And they tried to Russify Poland. And so the Russians have a history of doing this in a lot of countries. They'll invade countries and they'll try to Russify them. They'll try to force their culture and their language on those countries, and they'll discriminate against the cultures in those countries. I mean, they did the same thing to the Tatars in Crimea. So there was which the Tatars were people originally from Central Asia that actually they lived in Crimea actually before the Russians did. And so that was so they did oh, did I miss your membership message? You see here yeah, I don't think that really makes much sense, Mario. Thank you for sponsoring my channel.
Oh, it's supposed to be now one after this, supposed to be food.
But look,
so...
do you know what I oftentimes compare the Russian Empire to? Do you know what the Russian Empire was very similar to? It was very similar to the Japanese Empire. It was very similar in that regard. because the Japanese Empire and the Russian Empire had a lot of similarities in how they conquered countries. Because do you know what the Russians would do when they conquered like a country like Poland? Do you know what they would do when they were still the empire before they were the Soviet Union? They would typically say, oh, it's Slavic Brotherhood. That's what the Tsar would say, I'm a protector of Slavic peoples. That's what the Tsar would say. And so like, I'm going to protect all Slavic people and they're all Slavic brothers and blah, 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 this. But the thing is, that was just propaganda. It was Russian propaganda. It was never about Slavic Brotherhood or Slavic unity. It was more about Russian domination. Slavic Brotherhood basically is another word for Russian domination. Slavic Brotherhood would mean that all Slavic countries are equal and that all Slavic cultures are respected, but they weren't. It was the Russians would just dominate everything, and if it wasn't, if it Russian Slavic, then just screw it. That's what it was. It was propaganda that the Russian Empire pushed, that they were for Slavic people, when in reality it was all about Russian domination. The Japanese did the exact same thing. The Japanese had their own company. It was kind of like their own version of the British East Asia Company, and it was called the Japanese Greater East Asian Co-Prosperity Sphere. That's what it was called. And the Greater East Asian Co-Prosperity Sphere, basically what the Japanese would do when they would conquer countries in Asia, they would say to them, oh, we're all Asians, we're all equal, Asian Brotherhood. That's what they would say. And they would say, we're liberating you from the Europeans, because a lot of these countries were colonies that Japan had invaded. But the thing is, though, the Japanese did the exact same thing as the Europeans, and oftentimes they did worse. Like they did, genocides in a lot of like countries like China that they invaded. And so the Japanese never saw any people equal to them that they occupied. They always saw themselves as better. They always saw themselves as superior. And so they slaughtered the Chinese. They slaughtered the Koreans. They killed the Vietnamese, they killed Indonesians, they killed Taiwanese. So it was very similar in the Russian Empire and the Japanese Empire, how they would just occupy these countries and they would push this propaganda that we're for the people and we're all, for a big brotherhood, when in reality it was just propaganda just so that they could, benefit their empire. That's ultimately what it was about.
Alright, I'm back.
So, after this
but
one,
you can't say to them that they have
28.
no right to come into your country. They don't. They don't have a right to come into the country. Who has a right to invade another country? They don't. So, and Poland wasn't doing anything to Russia, and Russia just attacked it. So that was just so they really had no right to come into the countries. And the thing about this is that, what I'll tell you something, the Russian education system, for example, on this is just so biased, because what happened was in 1612, this happened over 400 years ago, when Poland was the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth. Do you know what Poland did at that time? Poland invaded Russia. A lot of people don't know about that. And Poland actually got really far into Russia, and they actually took Moscow. So the Polish and the Lithuanians, they took Moscow, and they held Moscow. And they ran Moscow for a few years. So the Poles ran the Kremlin. They took over the Kremlin and they ran it. And they ran it for only a few years. It wasn't that long. And then the Russians revolted and they kicked the Polish out. And the thing is, me as a Polish American, I'll tell you that was wrong. When Poland invaded Russia, that was wrong 400 years ago. But the thing is, that conflict lasted for a few years. It was for a few years and it was wrong when Poland did it. But what Russia did, they occupied Poland for over 100 years. More than that. It was It was the 1790s. So it was the 1790s. It was more like 120 years of Russian occupation versus a few years of Polish occupation. And the Russian history textbooks, they'll emphasize how Poland invaded their country. They'll talk about, Poles invaded, Russia 400 years ago. But then they'll barely talk about the 120-year occupation of Poland by Russians. So there was, so it's very biased. They'll pick and choose the history that they like, and they won't talk about the bad parts of history. In fact, they talk about the occupation of other countries like it's glorious and stuff like that. And that's why yeah, that's why I say it's very biased in just that whole system of thinking. What do you think of Karl Marx? Well, what I'll say about Karl Marx is, Karl Marx was more a product of his time. I'm not a communist. I don't like communists. But what I'll say about Karl Marx is, at the time when Karl Marx was writing the Communist Manifesto, at that time, you have to understand what was going on at that time. At that time, you had kids working in factories cutting their hands off. That's what basically happened at the time when Karl Marx wrote the Communist Manifesto. I don't know much about Karl Marx's personal life, so I can't say that. But I'm gonna say that at the time of when he wrote the Communist Manifesto, it was really bad. He had kids working in factories cutting their hands off. You had people that were working 6 days a week, 12-hour shifts, no breaks, and they barely had enough food to put on the table. And so you had these like industrialists and these like greedy factory bosses that would just, basically exploit workers. And so that's where Karl Marx got his inspiration for writing the Communist Manifesto. And the thing about this is that capitalism has come a long way since then. Like, at least in a lot of Western countries, like, people today make much more money than they did back in the day. They work a lot less and they make way more than they did back in the day. You don't have kids working in factories in Western countries cutting their hands off anymore. That doesn't happen. You have some third world countries where sure that happens, but in any Western, democratic country, you're not going to have something like that. You're not going to have like kids working in factories cutting their hands off. So, capitalism, at least in the Western world, has come a long way, and it's progressed, and it's changed a lot. I'm not saying capitalism is a perfect system. It's not. It has problems. I'm not saying it's, perfect. But, compared to everything else, it's, it's better than everything else. It's what my teacher in college, he used to say capitalism is not a perfect system, but compared to everything else, it's much better. That's been tried. So that's what I'll say about Karl Marx, is Karl Marx was, a product of his time. He was, at the time when he grew up, he saw a lot of injustices going on, and that's primarily where he got his inspiration for the Communist Manifesto. But I don't think Marx himself expected that like workers' rights would, get much better, so many, over a century later. But here's a fact for you guys that you guys actually don't that you guys that a lot of people don't know about. So a lot of communists, what they do is whenever there's a strike in any kind of Western country, if there's like a big strike in a Western country, like let's just say hundreds of workers go on strike, right? Communists generally support that, and they'll say, oh, it's good, the workers are standing up for themselves. And don't get me wrong, I support the right to strike and everything like that, but there's a massive hypocrisy here, because what people don't know is that in every single communist country that has ever existed, every single communist country, from the Soviet Union to Poland to Hungary to Czechoslovakia, East Germany, Cuba, Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia, China, North Korea, every single communist country, they have one thing in common, other than communism, obviously, but it's a specific law. And do you know what that law is? In every single communist country, it's illegal to strike. People don't know about that. So people say that communism is a workers' government. The workers run the, hang on a second, right? People say that the workers, that they run the government, right? The workers, run the government, they run the society. But the thing is, though, in every communist country, you can't strike. So my question is, why is that? Why can't you strike? Somebody's mic.
Yeah, I gotta shut up because my game just froze on me.
Okay, Brandon. But yeah, a lot of people actually don't know that. They don't know that in communist countries, you are not allowed to strike. They don't know that. And not only are you not allowed to strike in communist countries, do you know what else you're not allowed to do in communist countries? You're not allowed to be a member of a union. That's right. You can't be in a union in a communist country. Unions are actually illegal, so you can't do that. The only union that's allowed in any communist country are government unions, and the government union is crap. So private unions are banned. So whenever I've argued with communists a lot of times, and whenever I argue with them, like, I tell them, you support strikes in Western countries, but you won't support strikes in communist countries. And so it's like, the thing about that is that, when it comes to a country like the US, for example, my country, we're not a perfect country. But if you get pissed off at your job, and you say enough is enough, you can just walk off. You can just say, you know what, I'm done. And you can walk off, and you don't have to work there. And you might get fired if you go on strike, sure. It's going to happen, probably. But you know what you're not going to do? You're not going to get arrested. You're not going to get thrown in prison for that. But there is not one communist country where you can just say, you know what, I'm going on strike, and you can just walk out. Every communist country, striking is illegal. Look that up. Don't just take my word for it. Look up, is striking legal in communist countries? And you can see every single communist country, it was illegal to strike in. So my question to the communists would be, why are you not allowed to strike in the workers' paradise? Why is the workers' paradise, the government that's controlled by the workers, why are you not allowed to strike? Isn't striking a basic workers' right? I consider striking a basic workers' right. I consider being a member of a union a basic workers' right. Why are you not allowed to be in a union in a communist country? Why are you not allowed to strike in a communist country? These communists can never answer me that question. They can't. And oftentimes when I've seen communists get defensive, they'll say, oh, because the government already protects the workers. That's why you don't need a union. Oh, yeah, because you know what I find so ridiculous is communists constantly talk about how the government oppresses workers so much. But then at the same time, do you know who they want to fix that problem? They want the government to fix that problem too. Because the government has already shown that it's corrupt and that it's going to abuse workers. So at the same time as they want the government to fix that when the government is already corrupt. So you see how their logic just literally makes no sense. So that's why I hope I answered your question about Karl Marx. It's like a bit of a big answer there. When I say Western countries, I mean any countries in the West that are generally like democratic countries that are not hostile regimes, stuff like that are where people are not living, most of the people aren't living below the poverty line.
The next event is Fool's Gold.
How long?
20.
20 minutes?
Yeah.
Do you want to make a private
Joan Biden policy.
Wow, this loser is just chasing me all the way across the map here.
Do you want to make a private
How
long until Fool's Gold?
19 minutes.
19 minutes, okay. Okay.
This guy must be so obsessed with you. I could tell he is.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I can't tell, because I remember Scotty back in the old days.
I see here. Yeah, I think he was one of the griefers back from the old days, but it's... do you have a P.O. box? Not really. I don't. Feline King. Why, did you want to send me something? I heard sure that the Russian nobles wanted to appoint a Pole for the Tsar of Russia in 1612, but the Pole didn't want to convert to Eastern Orthodoxy. Yeah, so,
Okay,
hey, Sean, how are you, man? The guy was chasing me across the map. What am I supposed to say? He's a loser. Pro, you need to teach more about history. Yeah, and you know what I tell you? I got into a comment war. I got into a comment war like a few weeks ago. I had a random YouTube video recommended to me as like crazy facts about dictators or something like that, and it talked about how these Americans had prank called Castro. That actually happened. I don't know how they got Fidel Castro's phone number, but they prank called Fidel Castro. And what happened was they called him a murderer, and what happened was there's a bunch of people in the comments section that were getting all pissed off, and they were just saying, oh, Castro was a hero, and there's a bunch of other stuff, and they were saying how Castro had fought against like an American dictatorship to free his people. But here's what I'll tell you is when it comes to that is these people are picking and choosing their history. Because, something is, when I look at history, I look at everything. I look at both sides of the issue. And the thing about that is, when it comes to a revolution like the Cuban Revolution, did the Cubans have a right to revolt against the government? Yeah, they did. Because at that time, Cuba was a brutal regime controlled by this guy called Fulgencio Batista. Batista was a very corrupt man. He was a general in the military, and what happened with Batista is Batista was running for election. And he knew that he couldn't win the election, so he just overthrew the government in a coup and declared himself president for life. Batista, what he did was he brought the Italian mafia into Cuba. And the Italian mafia had bought up casinos and hotels, and that's actually part of The Godfather too. That actually happened in real life. The Cuban dictator did bring in the Italian mafia. But another thing I'll say about this, and listen to my whole story on this, guys. That was wrong, and it was bad. And the U.S. government, one of their biggest failures was they supported Batista. They supported him. The reason they supported Batista, even though Batista was a dictator, is because Batista was an anti-communist. And that's probably the biggest failure of American foreign policy, is that the United States would support any country that was anti-communist. It didn't matter what kind of government that country was. It didn't matter if that country was a dictatorship. I mean, they supported even fascist Spain, after World War II. So it didn't matter what literally government the country was. As long as the country was anti-communist, the United States would just support them. And that was like one of the biggest failures of American foreign policies. They supported a lot of really bad regimes. And just because, while I can't stand communists, just because, somebody's an anti-communist doesn't make them a good person. So there's plenty of people that are, don't like communism. They're bad people. And that's an example of that is Batista. And so what the Cubans revolted against the government because they were pissed off and they had a right to rebel. And the U.S. cut off funding to Batista, and Batista's regime fell. When Castro was overthrowing the government, nobody knew who Fidel Castro was. Nobody knew. Nobody knew what his political views were or anything like that. And it wasn't until a year later, after Castro was in power, he declared himself a communist and declared Cuba a communist country and just took the whole thing over. And so Fidel Castro, when he came to power, he had so many Cubans killed who fought on the same side as him. They fought together to overthrow the Cuban dictator Batista. And Castro just had those same people who fought on his side killed and arrested, imprisoned, and killed. And when he took over. So when I was arguing with this guy, he told me that Fidel Castro overthrew an American-backed dictatorship. And I got him really pissed off. You know what I said to him? I said Fidel Castro overthrew an American dictatorship to install his own Soviet dictatorship. That's what I said. And he got really pissed off by that. He was saying, oh, Fidel Castro wasn't a dictator. I was like, how can you not say Fidel Castro wasn't a dictator? And that's the problem with this whole line of thinking. It's just so stupid. Is, you know, if you criticize Fidel Castro, if you criticize the Communist Party in Cuba, then somehow you're a supporter of Batista. You're a supporter of the dictator that was before him. No, I'm not. You know, Batista was a scumbag. He deserved to get overthrown. So it was so just because, you know, I don't like Castro doesn't mean that I supported like the first like dictator that was in Cuba. No, he was corrupt. He was bad. He deserved to get overthrown. But you know, these people, they'll constantly put words in your mouth and they'll try to twist your words. And this same guy that I was arguing with, I told him, what about when the Soviet Union forced communism on Poland? What about when they installed their own dictatorship in Poland? Isn't that imperialism? Because this communist that I was arguing with, he would just talk about imperialism. He would say imperialism this, imperialism that, Western imperialism. He just constantly talking about that. And I said, what the Soviet Union did to Poland, wasn't that imperialist? How they took it over? And he said, no, that wasn't imperialist. Poland was flourishing under communism. You don't know what you're talking about. That's what he said. And I said, excuse me, you know, I know exactly what my parents went through. My parents told me several times how horrible communism was. And I'll tell you something. When my parents go into like when my parents go into a supermarket, like even though they've been in America for so many decades, my parents to this day are still amazed that you can go into a supermarket and you can find everything. Like you can go in there morning, midday, afternoon, even night if it's open at night, and you can find what you want. You can find whatever. You know, there might be like 1 or 2 items out of stock, but you can still generally find what you want, and you can buy as much food as you want. And so when they were growing up, my parents had something called ration cards, which were in communist Poland. And so the government would give you the ration card, and the ration card would basically tell you how much cigarettes you could buy in a week, how much meat you could buy in a week, how much milk you could buy in a week, and stuff like that. And this was their attempt to try to get rid of money, to try to somehow, you know, transition to a communist society. But you know what this did? This instead created a giant black market. So it caused a ton of crime. Because what happened was the new black market currency was ration cards. That's what they would trade it. And even though there was no money, there was still mafias in Poland that operated. And you know what they operated based on, the smugglers? They operated based on contraband. They operated based on goods instead of operating based on money. So communist thinking, the communist reasoning is they think that if you get rid of money, that you're going to get rid of, you know, all crimes, because crimes are, you know, based on money. But the thing about that is there are still crimes being committed, just these people transition from money into valuables. So instead of trading in money, they traded in jewelry, they traded in, you know, gold, they traded in other valuables. That's what they would do. And so you had entire moonshine operations, like gangs of moonshiners in Poland that were going around selling alcohol because the government alcohol sucked so much. And so this is what it was like. You know, my parents had to wait at 5 o'clock in the morning in the cold for the truck to arrive. And when the truck arrived to the supermarket, they walked into the supermarket in communist Poland, and there was maybe like 1 or 2 cans on the shelf, and everybody was fighting over the can. That's what my parents grew up under. And so, you know, my parents, they taught me not to waste anything. Like, my parents were very strict with that. They always told me, don't order more food that you can't eat. Like, order as much as you can eat, but don't waste food. And my parents would always encourage me to finish everything. And my parents, they would get really pissed off when I wouldn't finish something. So when I wouldn't finish my food or something like that, they would get really pissed off and said, we're not going to waste this. And it wasn't that my family was, like, poor. My family was, like, you know, I would say, like, we were between, like, working class and middle class. We were kind of, like, in between that. So a little bit better than, like, working class. But my parents just didn't like wasting anything, because the society that they grew up in, they had to save everything because they barely had anything. And, you know, my father always said, like, be grateful for what you have, because one day you might have nothing. That's what my father would always say to me. And so it was because they grew up with nothing. And so when I see these idiots on like Twitter and all the other stuff, and I see them with their iPhones just complaining about capitalism and just saying like, they're saying, oh, communism was such a good thing. Well, you know, my parents lived through it. It was not a good experience, just terrible. And you wouldn't have your iPhone, you wouldn't have your Twitter, you wouldn't have your YouTube, you wouldn't have any of that under communism. Even look at China. China, there's no, you know, YouTube is banned. You know, Twitter, I'm pretty sure, is banned too. You know, and even on the you look at the PlayStation Store in China. The PlayStation Store in China looks so stupid. It's like there's literally like 10 games on the PlayStation Store in China because like 90% of the games are banned in China. So that's literally like that. It's like why anybody would want to live under something like that? I just think it's dumb. And most of the time, this comes from elite privileged kids. Like, you know, it's mostly elite privileged kids. They go to college, you know, they link up with these other groups, and they think that they're some kind of heroes. They think that they're like freedom fighters. They think that they're fighting to like change the world, and that they're gonna make like a revolution. They're gonna change something, but in reality, they're a bunch of idiots. So that's about that.
Pat.
Yes.
Just to let you know, he's back in the lobby.
Oh, he is. How long is
Yeah.
How long is that one in? That free mode event? How long is it in?
9 minutes.
9 minutes. Okay. I'll leave the lobby then.
Oh.
Yeah,
I was gonna let you know to have moonshine ready.
Yeah, he's right behind me.
Yeah, just leave the lobby. Just leave the lobby, Brandon. You said you aren't political. Well, I don't get political. I don't. You know, if you like, I will never talk politics. I'll never tell you who to vote for. You know, that's your choice. What I'm just talking about is I'm criticizing an authoritarian system, communism. So I'm criticizing a dictatorship. I don't think criticizing communism is being political. I'm criticizing a government that has been tried in so many countries around the world and has killed so many people and failed every single time it's been tried. So I wouldn't say that criticizing communism is political. I mean, would criticizing fascism be political? You know, it's criticizing dictatorships. That's pretty much what it is. So it's So I criticize fascism, I criticize communism, I criticize dictatorships all the time. It doesn't make me political because I criticize like I criticize regimes. Wyatt, thank you for the super chat. But yeah, thank you, Wyatt. But yeah, this is what people don't understand about communism is communism is literally it is not just an economic system. Communism is an economic and a political system. It's an ideology in it. Capitalism is just mostly an economic system. That's what it is. It doesn't really have a political ideology to it. You know, capitalism, you can have any kind of government. Capitalism, you can have a democracy or you can have a dictatorship. But with communism, you're always going to have a dictatorship. So that's so communism is an ideology. Let me see here. Yeah, I could do a video like that. I could do like a part 2 update on that. Which is worse, fascism or communism? I would say fascism is worse than communism because as bad as communism is, you know, fascism is even worse because with fascism, and I guess it depends on the version of fascism, but like the worst version of fascism is Nazism. So it's like, I would say that's Nazism is much worse than communism because even though communism is a, you know, terrible system as well, you know, Nazism, they're gonna slaughter entire peoples, you know, that they don't like. You know, they're gonna completely, you know, ethnically cleanse any place that they take over and kill anybody that they don't like. So it was, so I've always had it that, you know, fascism is worse than communism, but that doesn't mean communism is a good system. Okay, 2 out of 20 here. How do those regimes start? What causes communism? Is it power? when you're talking about, for example, in Eastern Europe, 90% of the countries in Eastern Europe were communist because the Soviets forced it on them. But if you're talking about how communism, came about in a lot of countries, when there was revolutions, it was always the same thing. It was always people were very poor. People were very poor. They didn't have a lot of opportunity. And so what would happen is you would have, one guy usually led a communist faction, and he would say, I have the solution to all your problems. I would have the solution to all your problems. Support me, we'll topple the government, and we'll make life better for everyone. That's basically how it starts. It's always like that. People are poor, and they're desperate. And it's very similar to how fascism and communism both start. It's very similar. Because in both situations, the countries are poor, people don't have a lot of opportunity, and then you have somebody that comes along and to say, I have all the solutions to all these problems, you support me, and I will make life better for everyone else. And that's generally how it happens, is people put their faith in these leaders, and these leaders just make all these promises, and then when they come to power, they become dictators, and they kill a bunch of people. That's typically what happens. You look at both Russia and Germany. Russia and Germany had similarities in their economy. The German economy completely crashed. Like, it was people were poor, people were starving, and then when Hitler was coming to power, Hitler was saying he ran as chancellor, and he said vote for me, I have all the solutions to all your problems, I'll fix Germany, I'll give people their jobs back, I'll fix the economy, and people believed in him. And look at what ended up happening. So that's generally how it happens. Is you have people, these evil people, they will oftentimes they manipulate bad things that are happening. So whenever a dictatorship comes to power, almost always when there's something bad going on in the country, when there's something bad, it's like the economy is bad, people are very poor. Whenever you have those conditions, there's a much higher chance for a dictator coming to power, because when people are really poor, they don't have a lot of money, they're desperate, and they're going to turn to anybody for help. And the same thing happened in Russia. People were very poor, they were starving. The stupid Russian Tsar got them into World War I, and the people were just tired of it. And then Lenin came, and Lenin said, I have the solution to all your problems, help me overthrow the Tsar. And that's basically what happened. It was people that make promises, people blindly believe them, and then once these people get in power, you can't remove them from power. And that's generally how they come to power. They come to power through desperation. Have I seen All Quiet on the Western Front? I have. It was after All Quiet on the Western Front was a great movie. It was I didn't see the new one. I seen the 1930s one, and I saw the 1970s one. I seen both of those. It's a great movie. I highly recommend All Quiet on the Western Front. So I don't know about the new one, but the old ones are good. And I would thank you for subscribing, Nate. And I have a high opinion of those movies. I have a high opinion of those movies. I would say they're good. Okay, Jimmy. Thank you for telling me. Hey, Pro, I sent a super chat. If it's gone, I said that also with revisionism is that as a southerner from Texas, that the myth that the South seceded over states' rights is BS. Thank you, Justin. Well, what I'll tell you, thank you, Mikey, for that super chat. What I'll tell you is that, look, here's what I'll say about this, about stuff like this, is, there are people who everywhere in the world that you go, it doesn't matter where you go, Africa, North America, South America, Asia, Europe, no matter where you go, whenever people have something bad in their history, because almost every country has done something bad in their history, but some countries have done much worse than other countries. But almost everybody has done something bad in their history. The problem is that you have a lot of people that deny bad things that their countries have done. They deny it. They pretend like it doesn't happen. They will make excuses. They'll say, oh, no, this happened because of something else. And they'll try to make excuses. And oftentimes they attack the victims. So the victims of those countries, they oftentimes attack them, and they try to make them seem like bad people. Like, for example, one country that does this is Turkey. Turkey denies the Armenian genocide, where they killed between 1 million to 2 million Armenians during World War I. And Turkey basically claims that the Armenians moved They moved and they died along the way. That they moved and they died from the war and that they starved to death. Turkey refuses to admit that they killed them. Turkey mass murdered the Armenians. There is no question about that. But the modern day government of Turkey refuses to admit to that. So that's like an example of that. Another country that denies its history a lot is Japan. A lot of people might not think about this. Japan, even though Japan is such a peaceful country today and it's a non-violent country, the thing is that the Japanese government denies their history a lot. When it comes to World War II, they deny a lot of the massacres. They have admitted to some of the massacres, but there's other massacres and other occupations they've denied. And Japan actually has statues dedicated to Japanese generals who committed horrible things in World War II. So Japan does that. One country that has done a really good job at admitting their history is Germany. Germany is one of the few countries that done a really good job at admitting to their past history. But a lot of other countries, they don't. And why do people deny the bad history in their countries? Why? There's two main reasons people deny the bad things their countries do. It's shame. It's shame, and it's also refusing to believe. It's shame and pride. Basically what it is. It's shame and pride. I'm gonna start a posse here, guys, who want to join Fool's Gold. It's shame and pride. It's shame because they don't want to, they would feel ashamed if their country had done something like that, and they don't want to admit to that. And the other thing is pride. They're so proud of their countries that they cannot accept that their country had done something bad, and they can't accept that their country had done something horrible. And so that's ultimately where denial comes from. And you made the super chat asking me about, like, you know, people in the South, like, you know, denying that the Civil War is over slavery and saying that it's over states' rights. That's a perfect example. You know, I don't know how anybody can say that the Confederacy was not founded on slavery when it pretty much was founded on slavery. That's what it was. I'll wait for you guys to get into my posse here. But look, here's what I say about this: is people want to feel proud. People feel that they're proud to be Southerners, and so they create this myth that somehow that it was not about slavery when it pretty much was about slavery. That's what it was. The founding documents of the Confederacy literally list slavery. If you look at the founding documents of the Confederacy, they at least say that they're seceding over slavery. They give a specific reason over that. They say why they're seceding, because they think that Lincoln is going to make slavery illegal. And what the thing is, though, the people that deny that, and they say that the Confederacy was over states' rights, it wasn't over slavery, they will oftentimes point to Robert E. Lee, and they'll say, oh, Robert E. Lee was against slavery, so therefore the Confederacy didn't support slavery. Well, the thing about that is that Robert E. Lee, it is true, he was against slavery. But the thing is, though, he fought for a faction that supported slavery. Now, why would Robert E. Lee fight for the South if he was against slavery? The reason is because Robert E. Lee was more loyal to Virginia. That's where he was from. He was from Virginia. He was more loyal to the state of Virginia than he was to the entire Union. And so he couldn't fight against his home state of Virginia, even though he himself was against slavery. He believed that he was defending Virginia by fighting for the Confederacy. He was wrong. You know, he did a bad thing by helping the Confederacy. But that's why Robert E. Lee fought for the Confederacy, even though he was against slavery. But when people point to Robert E. Lee and they say, oh, Robert E. Lee was against slavery, so therefore the Confederacy didn't support slavery, that's nonsense. You can only point to one guy in that and say, oh, this one guy was against slavery. He fought for a faction that still supported slavery, and Robert E. Lee knew this. He knew that the faction he fought for supported slavery. And also, another thing is, there was a law that was passed in the Confederacy, a law. So the Confederacy had a draft similar to the draft in the Union. But I forget the name of the law, but the law basically said that if you own 20 or more slaves, you are exempt from the draft. You don't have to fight in the Confederate Army. So you're not going to get drafted. So why would the Confederates not draft slave owners? If you have 20 or more slaves, you're not going to get drafted. So the evidence is there. The Confederacy clearly seceded over slavery. It's not over states' rights. And when people say states' rights, I ask them the states' rights to what exactly? To what? To keep slaves? Because they can't ever answer me. I support states' rights a lot. I'm a small government guy. I don't think the government should be getting involved in states' affairs. But what the Confederacy did, that was not for states' rights. They were seceding primarily to keep slaves. That was the whole reason for it. It's primarily over that. So it was basically just a government that was controlled by a bunch of rich elite plantation owners. That's just pretty much what it was. And look, what I'll say about this is there's nothing wrong with being proud to be a Southerner. Nothing wrong with that. You know, the South is a great place also. But you shouldn't be proud of something like the Confederacy. You know, there's one thing of being proud to be a Southerner, but being proud of the Confederacy, that's not something to be proud of. That's not a good thing. So that's what I'll say about that. Hope I answered your question on that. So there's people that just yeah.
And I like to say that.
Oh, are the ads annoying on YouTube, guys? I'm really sorry. Are they? I tried, like, if they're really annoying, I'll turn them off. I apologize for that. I'll turn off the automatic ads there. It was a new setting for me. I didn't use it before, and if they're really bothering you guys, then I'll turn it off.
Oh, bro, I was gonna
Did we
say
miss
that.
the first gold or what?
I think I missed it. I was talking about that too much there. What do you think that the Dutch from Red Dead Redemption? Do you think that Dutch from Red Dead Redemption 2 story had some communist ideals? I knew he was anti-government, but he evolves into a dictator. Dutch is not a okay, I'll keep it off from now on. The only ads I'll have the ads in the beginning and the end of the stream. That's it. And then after the stream is over, I'll put ads on it. But the only ads I'll have from now on is the one at the start and the one at the end. If it's bothering you guys that much, I'm sorry about that. I didn't realize the ads were that annoying. So I'm sorry about that. About Dutch. Dutch is not a communist, not by any means. Dutch is basically an anarcho-capitalist. That's pretty much what he is. He is pretty much an extreme libertarian. That's what Dutch is. Is that guy in the lobby, by the way, Brandon? I don't want to check the players list because I don't want him to see who's in the lobby. But is he in here?
No, I don't see him.
Okay.
We're good.
Okay, well, what was I about Dutch? Dutch basically believes in the old system of the Wild West. He believes in a system of where you have small towns, no federal government, people make their own laws, people live in like a community helping each other. That's basically what Dutch believes in. He's not a communist by any means. He's an anarcho-capitalist. He despises, government. He despises, any kind of authority whatsoever. He thinks that people are responsible primarily for themselves. So there's, that's pretty much it. If you want to know what Dutch's ideology is, look up anarcho-capitalism. That's what Dutch's political views are, pretty much. So that's,
Hey, bro, I was
here.
gonna say that that I am a Southern and I'm from Florida, so
Okay.
I don't see myself as a Confederate, so I don't want to people keep thinking that I am, which I'm not, and they be calling me like racist, all that, just because I have the flag, which just doesn't have nothing to do with it, but it. So my view of that flag, the rebel flag.
Well,
is where I'm from.
the thing about that is that the Confederate battle flag, that's not the flag of the Confederacy, that is the flag of the Confederacy used in battle. The Confederate flag looks a little bit different, but it is a flag that the Confederacy had. But what I'll say about that is I disagree with that flag, and I don't think the flag is generally like a good thing. I don't think you're a racist, but I would just say that there's plenty of people that have that flag that aren't like racist. They just see it as like a form of Southern pride. That's pretty much what it's about. But what the flag basically stood for back then was not a good thing. I don't think the flag should be banned. I don't believe in censorship, but I just don't agree with what the flag originally represented, and so that's what I'll say about that. Is that that's not a good flag, personally, in my opinion.
I'm back
Well,
too.
it's the flag I was talking about is the one that has like the X, like.
I know what flag you're
little
talking
X
about.
mark.
The X and then the stars through it. I know exactly what flag you're talking about.
That's
What I'm gonna
the
say is
flag.
that people keep the flag because they see it as like a form of Southern pride. So not everybody that has the flag is a racist, but the flag does not have a good history behind it. It doesn't have a good background behind it. So honestly, I'm not gonna tell you what to do. I would personally get rid of the flag and just use an American flag. But like I said, I don't think the flag should be banned. I don't believe in censorship, but I don't, the flag itself is not just does not have a good meaning behind it. That's just what I'll say about it.
Well, I do also have an American flag as well.
Okay, well,
A lot of,
I disagree with it. But I don't think it should be banned. That's just my view on it. I don't believe in censorship, so that's.
a lot of southern states, they don't use it anymore. I don't know what the state was, but I think it might have been Mississippi. Although I could be wrong.
I know. I
they had
think it was Mississippi. I think you are right on that.
Yeah, and
they
they
did.
changed it in 2020. It had the Confederate battle flag in the top left, and then they changed it to "In God We Trust." But it was the last one to remove the Confederate flag.
Oh, we're doing a resupply mission for pros
Let me
camp.
see here. Yeah, we're gonna do a quick resupply, and then I can help anybody who needs help selling. But
Yeah, and then, yeah, I need.
I'm a very big supporter of the First Amendment and free speech, and so I don't think any kind of flag should be banned. But just my view on it personally, like I said, is I don't think that the flag has a good meaning behind it. But I think it's people's freedom if they want to have it or not. But me personally, I don't think that it has a good history and a good meaning behind it.
And I want to be mad about what you said, so...
Jelly beans. Like jelly beans.
That Arthur video thing.
Yeah, speaking of that, I'm actually eating them right now. That's why I'm saying that.
Okay, chemical wagon, here we go. Let's see. What do you think of the aftermath of the Silicon Valley Bank collapse? Do you think the government is handling the situation well? I'll tell you something. The government better not bail them out. That's just what I'll say about that. Watch out. Sorry. Oh, oops.
Who just ran over me?
I think I hit you, James, but you were just standing in the way.
No
I couldn't stop when I was already going. I couldn't stop.
I didn't. I know you couldn't stop.
But yeah, there was yeah.
It was an accident.
It's the same with the Germans in Wehrmacht in World War II. They weren't the pro-Nazi, but they fought for Hitler and the Nazi Party at the end of the day. Well, look, what I'll say about this is this is a myth and like false propaganda that people constantly spread around. Basically, there's a lot of people that think that it was just the Nazi SS that were the ones who caused the most amount of war crimes, and they think that the Wehrmacht were largely not responsible for that. But I'll tell you, the Wehrmacht did some really horrible things, and they were responsible. They're responsible for a lot of really bad stuff.
Be careful.
Ah, yep. I knew it. Here.
I seen his name before, and I was like, is that the same guy?
Yeah,
with
it's just
Creek?
these,
And I was like, yeah, that's him.
These guys, it's just, I don't even know why these people do stuff like this. It's just...
Do you want to make a private lobby and get away from them?
Yeah, probably, but, I don't know why people, like, people do stuff like this.
I got the...
Trying to destroy it?
No, I'm getting it.
Yeah.
No.
Wow.
They destroyed it, but it's fine. It's just a resupply. There's nothing else more than
You guys need
that.
to find another lobby.
How?
I think this guy...
Whee!
I think this guy's following you.
Yeah, it's a different guy, but I recognize that guy off the bat.
I don't know why people are like this. I mean, I don't know why people do stuff like this, honestly. Like, I don't cause drama. I don't harass other people. I don't know why people, do stuff like this,
It's because you're
I know reason why. It's because you're a YouTuber. That's probably why.
I remember that. I know that name.
Yeah, I know that name too. Like, I got a friend request from them, and I declined it, and I blocked them. And they somehow, like, I have no idea.
But okay, what I was saying before I got cut off by those morons that were attacking me is there's this false propaganda that you hear, that a lot of people push, this false propaganda. And do you know what this false propaganda is? It's this idea that the SS were the ones that committed the vast majority of Nazi crimes, and so the Wehrmacht were just not guilty, and there was innocent victims and stuff like that. But here's the thing about this. When it comes to the Wehrmacht committed a lot of really horrible things, and they did a lot of really bad stuff. For example, go on Google if you want to know one of the worst war crimes the Wehrmacht ever committed. Go on Google Images and look up Warsaw, Polish city, Warsaw, 1930s. Just look at what Warsaw looks like in 1930s. Then go on Google Images and type in Warsaw, 1945. And just see what the city looks like. It's a big crater. It's like there's nothing left of the city. What happened was in August of 1944, there was the Warsaw Uprising. There was a bunch of Polish people got together as the Red Army was advancing, and they wanted to liberate the city before the Red Army had gotten there. And so they staged an uprising against the Nazis. The Warsaw Uprising started out successful at the start. The Polish resistance actually kicked the Nazis out of the city. They kicked them out of Warsaw. But then what happened was the Nazis came back with tanks. And then they took back the city. And then when they took back the city, they slaughtered the Polish rebels who had surrendered. And they sent a lot of people to concentration camps afterwards. And what happened was Hitler was so furious that Warsaw had rebelled, he ordered the entire city to be destroyed with flamethrowers. So the Wehrmacht, this was the Wehrmacht who did this, the German army. They went door to door in Warsaw, in Poland's capital city, door to door with flamethrowers, burning buildings alive and burning people alive. This was the German army that did this. And so when I hear people say, oh, the German army didn't commit war crimes, it was just the SS, this nonsense. The Wehrmacht committed plenty of war crimes. They were the ones who destroyed Warsaw. Warsaw was the most destroyed city in all of Europe, the most destroyed city. A lot of people think it was Stalingrad, but it wasn't Stalingrad. Stalingrad, while it was one of the most destroyed cities, it was Warsaw. Warsaw, Poland's capital city, is the most destroyed city, and 20% of all Polish people died in World War II. 20%.
Do they have a game that's set in that time period?
There is actually one game I think called Enemy Front, which is set during the Warsaw Uprising, but I don't think it really makes an appearance in a lot of World War II games. But this ridiculous idea that the Wehrmacht was like innocent and just it was just the SS who had committed horrible crimes and stuff like that. So it was the thing about this is people need to have and this whole idea, we're just following orders. That's not acceptable. That's not an acceptable defense. You can't use that as a defense. Because if you say we're following orders, you can use that towards anything, really, to justify anything. And that's what the Nazis tried to do. After World War II, when the Nazis were put on trial for the horrible things they did, they said, oh, it wasn't our fault, we were just following orders. You were the ones who did it. So it doesn't matter whether it was orders or not. You chose to follow the orders. Remember what Nico says in GTA 4. He says you have to make sure you believe in the orders before you follow them. So so literally it's just so that's not an excuse. And I'm glad a lot of those guys got hanged after the war. But
if they don't follow the orders, then they're gonna get killed anyways.
No, that's not an excuse. I'd rather die. If I was given the order to kill innocent people or die, I'd rather die than kill anybody else. I wouldn't be if I was forced to kill an innocent person, I wouldn't be able to sleep at night. I wouldn't be able to handle that. I'd rather die than have to do that. So that's not an excuse. And also you could desert, you could leave. You could try to run away. That would be a better alternative than that. So just following orders is not an excuse. So that's what I'll say about that. But about the bank thing that people were telling me about, what I was saying earlier is the government better not bail out the banks. They better not. Because, when is the thing about that is, remember when Americans were stuck in lockdowns? Remember that when we were stuck in lockdowns for years, and literally when our stimulus checks were coming in, the government was trying as hard as possible not to pay out the stimulus checks. They sent out only a few $100s, and then when there was outrage, they sent more after that finally. But the government goes to such great lengths to when the American people actually need help, the government will go to such great lengths to avoid helping people. But then when the large corporations or the banks need help, of course, let's just bail them out and let's help them out. So say the government better not bail out those banks. They better not. Let them fail. That's just what I'll say. It was they wanted to make risky investments. Let them pay for it now. That's just what I'll say about that. That's their own fault. So that's Why are you hiding in the shack? Fight back. I'm not going to fight back against those idiots. It's going to give them more attention. And those people are just going to use explosive rounds and dynamite arrows. That's all they're going to do. So.
Can I have an invite back to that moonshine shack, please? I liked that before.
Are you in the posse?
I'm in the posse. Yeah.
Yeah, that's that.
Are those griefers still in this lobby, by the way?
No, I don't see his name anywhere.
Neither.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No, they left.
But I guarantee they'll be joining back anyway.
They're gonna be joining back.
Oh yeah.
I'll find new session. I got moonshine.
Mole, there's some, Mole, you have to calm down, man. There's a lot of people that are posting comments. I'm trying my best to read as many comments as I can. I'm not ignoring you. You know, I have read, Mole, I've probably read over 100 of your comments, like, on so many different streams. So you've been watching my channel for years. You know I've read so many of your comments, so please don't accuse me of ignoring you. So it's,
Yeah. Yeah.
Time him out next time he does that.
I'm not gonna time him out. He doesn't need a timeout. But it's,
Just repeat the comment, and that's all you gotta do.
Yep.
I mean, there is 420 people watching, so it's going to be quite difficult to read everyone.
You don't have to super chat me for, you don't have to super chat for me to read your comment.
Do you want to play?
Did I show you the screenshot of my channel?
No.
Do you want to play the instruments at the bottom of the?
Hang on a second. I'm gonna a little bit about history and stuff. Maul, you don't have to leave the stream. I read your comments. It's just there's just a lot of people that just post, so it's hard for me to read everyone's comments. Are there Ace Attorney killers that you find tragic? What Ace Attorney killer did I feel bad for?
Everyone said, what's your favorite?
There was that guy, there was the guy at the circus, you know, I did kind of feel bad for him. I remember that story. I don't remember the case was the circus one. The circus case in that game. I remember that one. Okay. Let's see here. Let me look at my daily challenges. What do we got? Drank, own strong moonshine, changed decor. That's easy. I'm good, Ian. How are you, man?
Hello, Ian.
Hey, Pro, I'm doing an essay on North Korea for school and why it's a garbage country. What's your thoughts on North Korea and its leader, Kim Jong-un? Kim Jong-un is a, Kim Jong-un is definitely one of the worst, you know, dictators in the world. I don't think he's as bad as Kim Jong-il. I think Kim Jong-il is worse than him. But, he's not a, you know, he's not a good man at all. The people see him as like a god, and it's, you know, ridiculous. You know what the most ridiculous thing about... You know what, honestly, I'll tell you something. North Korea really pisses me off. And the reason it really pisses me off is because North Korea constantly threatens all of its neighbors. Like, constantly. They threaten people all the time. And then what happens is, when people talk back to them, they act like they're the victim. Like, everyone's being an aggressor towards them, and they're just trying to defend themselves. Like, have you guys noticed that? Like, North Korea will constantly threaten other countries, and then when other countries, stand up to them and say enough is enough, like, North Korea acts like they're the victims. That's what honestly has pissed me off so much about that government. Well, here's the thing is, if you ever decide to write an essay about the country of Turkmenistan, because a lot of people have never heard about the country of Turkmenistan. They don't know much about Turkmenistan, which Turkmenistan is Turkmenistan is the second most unfree country in the world. It's actually right behind North Korea. Okay, 15 out of 20 bottles, okay.
Welcome.
Well, the thing about that is that's actually true. North Koreans are only allowed to have like one of 20 haircuts, I think it is. So that actually is true. Is my moonshine almost ready here?
Hey, bro, can I invite to the posse?
Second, hang on.
They're just random, like right in front of me.
What?
Oh, I'm saying they're just random right in front of me, so he could be it.
I made a spot in the posse. The posse's open.
Oh, okay.
These things only costed like $1.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, I should be in.
Kyle, you do look, what I'll say earlier about American foreign policy is the United States has messed up a lot in supporting a lot of dictators throughout the Cold War, especially up until today even. So there's like, there have been dictators that the United States has supported, and that's bad. Americans don't generally support that, but the thing about this is that there's a lot of dictatorships, for example, that the Soviets had supported and Soviets had propped up. Like, for example, like North Korea, the Soviets are completely responsible for North Korea. Like, Russia has responsibility in that. That's their fault that North Korea exists today it's a dictatorship. So it's 100% on them for something like that, because they were the ones who created that government and supported that government in the first place. So there are a lot of, dictatorships around the world supported by different countries, but, probably not, Edgy. Maybe one day. Can you do Kyle solo? I get kicked every time. Yeah, I can do Kyle Perico solo. Why do you get kicked?
I do solo. I almost got the lead challenge on it. I was doing it solo. Now they nerfed it.
I'm pretty much bored of Kyle Perico.
Yeah, so me. Cause then if you do a solo, you gotta wait. After you do it, you gotta wait almost 2 hours to restart it again.
The governor of the dictator of Turkmenistan. Basically, Turkmenistan is such a psycho dictatorship. People actually have not heard of it before, but you can't put it all on the Soviets, Pro. It was both sides' fault. Well, the thing about that is while the United States did prop up the government in South Korea eventually became a democracy. And you look at like Taiwan, which the United States supported Taiwan. Taiwan was a dictatorship at one point, but Taiwan became a democracy. Where China didn't become a democracy. China instead stayed a dictatorship. So Russia does have responsibility in North Korea. It does. So that's on them for that government there. But what I was saying about Turkmenistan is I think I'll just probably sell moonshine today here, as long as those idiots don't join back and try to blow it up. But about Turkmenistan is Turkmenistan, that government is such a brutal dictatorship that I'll tell you guys something. And when I tell you guys this, you guys are gonna say, what? The dictator in Turkmenistan actually named the months of the year after his family members. So he named the months on the calendar after his family members. And what he did was he made a law where every single building in the capital city has to be painted white. So if you go in the capital city, every building is white. Every building. And only white and gray cars are allowed on the streets of Turkmenistan. If you go on Google Earth, you'll barely see any cars that are white or gray on the streets of Turkmenistan. But that's not the most ridiculous thing that he's done. The most ridiculous thing that he's done is the dictator of Turkmenistan actually recorded, and I'm not joking when I say this, he recorded a rap video. So he made his own music video, the dictator, this guy's a dictator. He made his own music video where he was rapping, and he put it on state TV, and he forced his people to watch it. And I'm not joking when I say this, it sounds like something like in an Onion article or Onion video, or it sounds like something that you see in that movie, The Dictator. But this actually happened. You can watch his rap video. He sucks at rapping, by the way. But his it's called Look Up Turkmenistan Dictator Rap. It's actually on YouTube, and it's a ridiculous thing. So there's also another thing where he did a holiday special where it was during the Christmas time. He played the piano on TV, and I wouldn't be surprised if the piano was like rigged, so he wasn't actually playing it. But it was but he played the piano and he sang like Christmas songs or whatever on TV. It was really creepy too. So that was yeah, that's this guy. And also because Turkmenistan has had two dictators, and I'm trying to remember which dictator it was that did it, but they also did it where you were only allowed to have a beard if you're 70 years old. So that's like so that's one of the laws in Turkmenistan. One other thing that I'll tell you is he actually, the dictator actually wrote books. So he wrote books, and whenever you become a politician in Turkmenistan and you go into the Turkmenistani parliament, you have to swear on his book, which is just so creepy. And I've seen what his book looks like. His book is really like a children's book. Like, it's a book with like just a picture on it and just a few sentences on like one. So it's like something like a 5-year-old would make. Like, but that's like his books that he wrote. So that's the type of state that Turkmenistan is in. I'll tell you guys something funny that happened though. He was in a horse race, so he was horse racing. And when he was doing the horse race, all the other riders were like trailing behind him, like they were too scared to pass him. And what happened was during the race, the horse actually threw him off, which I thought was funny. So the horse threw the dictator off. And what happened was when they threw the dictator off, the state TV actually cut it. So they cut it immediately when he got thrown off. But somebody got the footage of that and put it on YouTube. So you can watch a video of the Turkmenistan dictator getting thrown off the horse. And that footage is illegal to have in Turkmenistan. You have that footage on you in Turkmenistan, you could probably be killed for that. But that's Turkmenistan. It's a lot of people have never heard about that country, and it's one of the worst dictatorships in the world.
Yeah, no offense to this dictator, but he deserves to be overthrown for making the laws like so like strict like that.
I try to join, I just spawned to the submarine and it says kick from job and I have to restart every single time. Have you tried to cancel the heist and just restart it all over again? Thank you, Feline King. Yes, Turkmenistan was part of the Soviet Union. It was a former Soviet country. The boss in Saints Row 3 was, still somewhat of a boss, but he was getting stupider. But in Saints Row 2 is the best boss. What's the worst thing you've heard about the Uyghurs camps in China? Well, what I'll say, that is what the Chinese are doing to the Uyghur people. That's massive human rights violations, and it's how how would I word this even? It's they basically have put these people in like camps, which they call them re-education camps, and these camps are just brutal. You know, it's literally looks like a prison. It's even worse than a prison actually, and they're just imprisoning people, you know, based on their race. And the thing about that is that the Uyghur people in China, they are a Turkish people that are from Central Asia, so they're not you know, they're not ethnically Chinese, and I think that's one of the reasons the Chinese really don't like them, and so that's one of the reasons that they're probably putting them in those camps. But it's a massive human rights violation. It's horrible, and the thing about that is you have a lot of celebrities in the West that refuse to admit that that's happening. Like you have scumbags like LeBron James that won't say anything about that. You have a lot of like celebrities that will that won't talk about that. There was even like there was an NBA, like one of the basketball owners, I forget, he was like a really rich guy, and he was basically saying he was like saying like, why should I care about China or what's happening in China or something. Like he refused to criticize it. He was like a very like scumbag, like very scummy guy. Yeah, John Cena too. John Cena's another guy. John Cena's another scumbag. So yeah. What are your thoughts on India, Pro? Well, what I don't know much about India's government, but I do know that China is trying to steal land from India. They are. And actually, a year ago, Chinese troops and Indian soldiers actually got into a battle where they were actually shooting at each other. It happened in the Kashmir Mountains, and so China is trying to claim part of the Kashmir Mountains as part of their country, when that land belongs to India, not to China. And so it's you know, China has China has been aggressive with India, but the thing about that is when the Chinese attacked the Indians responded. They fired right back at the Chinese. And what happened was the Indians, literally, government went right after the Chinese government. They banned TikTok almost immediately right after that had happened. They put sanctions on the Chinese government, so they were very quick. But the thing is, a lot of Western countries, they don't react. Like I wish a lot of Western countries had reacted like the Indian government had done, like just putting sanctions on China and just like banning TikTok immediately. Because like a lot of Western countries, they kind of suck up to the Chinese government. They won't ever put sanctions on China. They'll never do that. So that's are these are those guys in the lobby, by the way, guys?
No, Pro. I've been looking at my list.
They're not in the lobby?
Yeah, I don't see the names, but I've been looking.
I don't
okay.
see them on the list.
I'm gonna make the sale really quick. Can you guys just keep refreshing the player list, and if they join, just tell me?
Yeah, I will, Pro.
Thank you.
Well, me and Brandon will.
Who's it dead?
Oh.
What the? What else the guys that just started shooting in the red?
What I'll say is that
you will look after every last jug. So they are yours. Allez-y.
Kashmir belongs to India. India, I don't know how you can say that belongs to China. The thing is though, India was in that region way before China was. They were in that region hundreds of years before China was. So I don't know, China didn't go that far west at that time. You know, hundreds of years ago. The only countries that have somewhat of a claim to Kashmir are India and Pakistan, but not China. China has no claim whatsoever to Kashmir, zero. That land is all Indian, and it's
Holy crap. Pro, I think you should close our application.
They're in the lobby?
Yes, I think, because there's like 4, yeah, wait.
No, they're not.
They're not in the lobby, James?
Well,
No, but
one of them killed me.
Different people.
What?
One of them killed me.
go through this checkpoint
Oh,
here.
I said like one of them killed me. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, they're coming this way.
Of course, Lancaster. Always specialize with damn Lancaster.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna close this app here. Yeah, these guys, oh my god. It's just, I don't know why people do stuff like this. It's just...
I thought I did warn you, Paul. I forgot my mic is muted. Hijo la puta.
Sorry, Brad. What the fuck? Fuck me off my own horse.
Kashmir is between India and Pakistan, not China. But China makes claims to those lands. I don't know if it's Kashmir directly, but it's like one of the northern provinces in India, like one of the northern ones. China makes claims to it. So it's literally China makes claims to parts of Indian land. You can look that up. That does happen, and China has no claim whatsoever to that land. Zero. The thing about this is the country of China has border disputes with almost every single country it borders. Every single country. They even have border disputes with Russia and North Korea. So it's like every country they have a border dispute. Russia, with North Korea, with Mongolia. They have it with India. They have it with Tajikistan. So there's Tajikistan, the country of Tajikistan. Years ago, do you know what actually happened? Years ago, China threatened to invade the country of Tajikistan. Tajikistan is a former Soviet country. It's not a rich country, it's a poor country. And China threatened to invade that small, poor country and told them, give us like 20% of your country. It belonged to us in the past. If you don't let us take it, we're going to invade the country. And do you know what Tajikistan did? Tajikistan just handed it over. They just gave 20% of their country to China. Nobody came to defend Tajikistan. Nobody came to help them. Even Russia, who claims that they're an ally of Tajikistan, did nothing to help them. So it's like Russia doesn't care about their allies as well. It's just Russia's another ideologically just purely driven country for themselves, just like China. But it's just nobody came to help Tajikistan, and what happened was China just took like 20% of this poor country's land. No, literally, they did that.
China also has disputes with countries it doesn't border, like Taiwan and Australia.
Yeah, and China builds like artificial islands in like the in the Southeast Asian Sea, and they're trying to just expand their borders just more and more when they're doing that. So literally, they have a border dispute with almost every country. But the thing is, though, is if you look at China, there's several countries, regions that China has no claim to whatsoever. Like, look at, for example, Tibet. Tibet is not China. It has not historically been China. And they conquered it and they annexed it. How Tibet is China? I will never know. But that's what they claim. They claim that Tibet is China when it's not. So it's like it's always they have a border dispute with everyone. And then, people aren't allowed to have border disputes with them. So their borders are always that's it. I would never want to border, China. That would just it. They would every country they border they cause disputes with.
Do you want to do a private session, bro, to stop these idiots rejoining?
Are they still are they rejoining the lobby?
They're in this lobby still. They just killed me right there.
I would leave that lobby.
Well, I just left the session. I'm trying to find a new one.
I'm gonna play a little poker here. Do you think China will try to take back Taiwan? It's entirely a possibility. It will. It is. But Taiwan is not their land. It's not. By the way, have you guys ever seen those Chinese bot accounts? Because I've seen them a lot of times. I've seen them on Twitter. I've seen them on YouTube, where there's like accounts of people that pretend to be Westerners that are supporting China, but they're not. But there's those like Chinese bot accounts. There's this girl that I argued with once on Twitter. I don't know if she was from China. She had a Chinese name, and she was saying pro-Chinese Communist Party stuff. And basically what she was saying that Taiwan is historically part of China. And I said to her, Taiwan does not want to be part of China, the vast majority of people. And she said that it doesn't matter what people in Taiwan want. Taiwan is historically part of China and has no right to secede from China. And I said one simple thing to her. And I got her so mad. I could tell I pissed her off, like, because she gave me a bunch of replies after that, and she was nasty. Do you know what I said? One simple thing I said. It was like one simple thing that pissed her off. I said to her, you're here defending the Communist Party of China on Twitter, but Twitter itself is banned in China. That's all I said. And that set her off. Oh boy, she was pissed when I replied back to her with that. So that's why I was 100% right on what I said. She was there on Twitter defending the Communist Party of China, but Twitter is banned in China. You can look that up. And so she was mad. She was pissed when I said that. Like she started attacking America. She just started talking about American imperialism. She just started saying, America's an imperialist country. Like, what does that have to do with like what does that have to do with like what I just said? I just said that Twitter is banned in China, and she just started going off on all these random things about the United States and everything like that. We're talking about Taiwan. We're not talking about America. But it's just but it was just there.
Years of new generation.
That's basically what it is. It's whataboutism. Whataboutism. It's like if you're losing the argument and you basically say, well, what about this? What about that? Well, what about American imperialism? Like I literally just said Twitter is banned in China and you don't have a right to use Twitter in China. She said, what about American imperialism? What does that have what American imperialism? And what does that have to do with Taiwan and Twitter? That's what we're talking about right now. But that's literally what's so just ridiculous with the bot accounts people use to defend China.
I'm guessing you just ignored that person, right?
I didn't reply to them. I didn't reply to them at that point. I was just done. It was just it wasn't gonna be
Man, Pro. Not only is China a bad country, but during the Korean War, they also invaded North Korea and kicked us out.
Well, they kicked us out of North Korea, but then they tried to take over South Korea, and we kicked them out of South Korea. So that's but I wouldn't use that. I wouldn't say that China is a bad country. I would say the Chinese government is a bad government, because I make distinction between the government and the people. I love Chinese people. I love Chinese culture, but I just cannot stand that government. I can't stand it. Chinese Communist Party is toxic as hell. And it's if the Communist Party of China was like, banned tomorrow, that would be a good thing. So that was just, that party was gone. That was just,
I see you back in here, Pro.
Okay. Okay. Is that guy are those people in the lobby again?
Yes, they're still in the lobby.
In my new lobby, I'm saying.
I'm
gonna form a posse here.
I'm joining back. I got lagged out.
You see those bots in comment sections that copy and paste another comment, but bot the comment with likes and have a profile picture. Yes, I've seen that. It's creepy.
I have a list of new patrons for you.
Yeah. Oh, next lore video will be on San Andreas. I don't want to spoil what it's gonna be, but it's gonna be a good one. No, I haven't said anything political during the entire stream. You can watch the whole stream. I haven't said anything political. All I basically did was I criticized dictatorships. That's all I've done. I criticized communism. And if you go back like an hour before this, I criticized fascism. I spent just 20 minutes talking about how evil fascism was. So I'm just criticizing dictatorships. It's nothing political with just criticizing dictatorships. So I have not said anything political. I haven't said about who to vote for or anything like that. I stay away from that. I never get involved in that. People know what my views are in the Communist Party of China, and I don't like them. That's.
I was wondering when you were going to get here.
Have you ever watched the show Tulsa King? No, I haven't, Antonio.
This one is superior, eh? I have found a buyer who will appreciate.
Yes, I know about that. It was called the Siberian Intervention, Edgy.
Now, all you have to do
hey, bro, come back to the posse.
I started up the posse before, though. You didn't join?
It's open. It's open.
Well, I started up the sale now, so you might not be able to join. Can you guys watch the lobby and just tell me if those people join in? Please just tell me, and I'll close the app again if they just join in.
Yeah.
But if they join in again, I'm just gonna give up on selling this. I'll just sell this another time. If they join in,
Yeah. Okay.
Does anybody see them in the lobby?
I don't think so. I think we're good. Hopefully.
Okay, I'm keeping an eye on the map.
Thank you for subscribing, Nate.
Oops.
Sorry.
Rich.
That's my bad. I'm sorry.
You killed my course.
No.
I'm sure it was an accident, so I know he didn't do it
No,
on
Marshall?
purpose.
They ran into each other.
Killed my horse.
Okay, retracted. A comment. Well, thank you for the super chat. Okay. Yes, I know. Mercenaries 1 is in North Korea.
Love that game. Even though I haven't played it, I only played the second game.
I'm just gonna drive right past the roadblock. I'm just gonna drive right past it.
I have it on the real life Fox, so it's so badly scratched that I had to stop playing it.
You know that new car that they've added in GTA?
What new car?
It's the chicken man's car from Toy Story 2.
It looks like a Christine. Nearly almost looks like that one.
I think the back guys.
They're back?
Yeah, I just got shot.
They're in the lobby again?
Not the ones who've been. No,
You can make this call.
Are they in the lobby again?
not Rick, not that one starts with W.
Yeah, just sell it quick. Sorry. Yeah. Well, better you got shot.
Well, we already know who the characters are, Zombie Fanatic, in the in GTA 6. We know who they are.
Yes, Jay.
But you know, I'll tell you guys something. You know what Rockstar should do to make the story in GTA 6 really good? I'll tell you what they should do. They should make it that Jason and Lucia at the start of it, when they're going to Vice City, they're attending college. They're attending the University of Vice City. And so what happens is they just finished college and they're trying to pay off their student loans. And so they're trying to pay off rent. And so they then form like a criminal empire and get their friends together and get like a bunch of Twitter followers together, and they form like a big gang to try to pay off their student loans. I think if they did that as a story for GTA 6, I think that would be great, and I think that would just I think that'd be a great plot.
We already know. I know what city GTA 6 is gonna be in. That's Vice City.
Let's go rob a bank without wearing a mask.
And give the police our identities. Make it easier to catch.
Okay, let's see here, Valentine.
Look at words we put on it. I hate it.
An interesting story about the Russian Civil War is the Czechoslovak Legion who traveled all the way to Vladivostok to capture back to their country. Yeah, I know about that. No, I don't know. What is that?
You punk.
Thank you for that super chat there. Okay. Okay, I'm gonna start up a poker match. I'm gonna go into game chat.
Okay.
Okay, here we go. And at the end, the dog saves Jason from death. Yep. You know what else? Okay, if you guys didn't like the story for like the if you guys didn't like my idea for like GTA 6, where like I said that like Jason and Lucia should be trying to pay off student loans and like trying to pay their rent off and just trying to form a criminal empire. What about this? What if we take the story in a different direction? What if instead the story is going to be this, where at the beginning of the game, at the beginning of the game, what happens is Lucia travels to Sandy Shores in San Andreas at the beginning of the game, and she captures Trevor, and she kills Trevor with a golf club. And then you find out that Lucia is the daughter of one of the random biker NPCs that Trevor killed in the in GTA 5. And then what happens is then you play as Michael and Franklin as you go to Vice City and just go after her. And then you play as half the game as Lucia, and they try to make you feel bad for her. Maybe they should do that too. Would you guys like a story like that? And then at the end of the game, when Michael is like about to kill like Lucia for killing Trevor, he just realizes revenge is wrong and then just leaves. That's 10-10 masterpiece in the making. Yep. So many people in the chat don't get the joke in the chat. Yeah. Yeah, for people that don't know what I was making fun of, I was making fun of the Last of Us 2 story. Because that's actually what I just described to you guys. That's actually the plot in The Last of Us 2, and I'm not joking. That in The Last of Us 2, the main character that you played as in the first game, Joel, he gets killed by the daughter of a random NPC he killed in the first game, and then you play as her for half of the game, and the game tries to make you feel bad for her. That's really the story in The Last of Us 2. I'm not joking when I say that. Oh, because these are randoms, Miracle. Oh yeah, I've played L.A. Noire before. Okay, let's see here. Oh, these cards aren't that bad. Okay. I'll go in with this. If I get a king in these cards, I'm gonna win. Let's hope I get a king. Oh, I got on the 9. Yeah, I did it. Ha! I guess I'm lucky on St. Patrick's Day, right? Yeah. Next lore video, I'll try to have it out soon. I don't want to give a specific time frame, but I am gonna have another top 10 out this week, though. Can you teach us how to play poker? Sure. I think this is Texas poker. Basically, how this is everybody gets 2 cards. And you make a bid, and people have to match the bid if they want to continue, or they can fold. Folding basically means that they're not going to bid anymore, and they're going to forfeit whatever they put in the pot. The pot is that's in the middle. So I'm going to call right now, 20 cents. Everyone's putting 20 cents. If somebody bids more than 20 cents, you have to match that number or fold your cards. What happens is after everyone checks, that's, checks or bids more, you have the community cards which appear. And you have to look for matching cards here. And, okay. I have 2 2s, but I could possibly get a flush. A flush would be having all the same type of cards. So there's 3 diamonds. If I get 2 more diamonds, I can get a flush. So everyone's putting $1 in, so we got to match that. I don't really listen to that many singers. Yeah, I don't really got... I have a 2 that's matching, but... I've been to Poland last time in, like, in 2010. So last time I was in Poland was 13 years ago. It's gonna be a bit risky here. Ah, I'm screwed. Ooh. Everyone had a pair. Blackjack is okay. No, GTA 6 should be like this. There's a guy in a CN shirt named Richard, and he wanted to be the biggest empire, so buys a small store, but then a robber robs his store, and a sniper kills the robber. Wait, what? Chinatown Wars next part will be coming out right after the stream. Thank you, Captain, for subscribing. No, I'm not going in with these cards. No matching cards, nothing. I hope you like my little avatar there, Super Mario. I'll do one on Rocco too. Oh, 1v1 right now, huh? Not to be annoying, but have you considered getting a second monitor to read the chat? I'm just trying to give you feedback from a viewer perspective. Yeah, I thought about that too. I don't know, I guess it kind of works for me on my phone. Wow, nothing here. Not good. Now I'm folding. I cannot believe people get upset when you're not answering, when half the streamers with you're following do not answer any chats unless it's a super chat. I read as many comments as I can, regardless of whether it's a super chat or not. And I don't understand why a lot of YouTubers don't read the chat. I don't know why. GTA 6 should be about avoiding being canceled on Bleeder. Oh, they both won. Why does your mic sound fuzzy? It does? What? Is my mic okay, guys? Is there something wrong with it? Is Moljam back? Let's see, what cards do I got here? Yeah, possibly could do Sleeping Dogs 100%. Static? Oh, I'm not from the UK, or you mean you're from the UK? I'll have to examine it after the stream then. What is your opinion about the Moist Critical and Dark Viper AU drama? I don't even know what's going on. This is the first time I'm hearing about it. I stay away from drama. Drama is just toxic. But tell me, what's going on then? I'm just curious. But aren't Moist Critical and Dark Viper AU friends? So what drama? I don't understand. Six and 9 and okay, here we go. Now I got some good cards. Okay. Wait, what, Lance? What if the upcoming The Last of Us factions that will be playing similar to Red Dead Online? Will you play it? Just that asking. I'll give it I'll give it a chance when it probably comes out. I did like the multiplayer in the first one, but I just didn't like the story in the second game. I just don't think it was good. But I'm more curious what an online game would look like. Okay, here we go. $3 in now. Oh. Oh, damn. Well, I still have $3 extra, so I'm gonna leave here. That was actually you know, a good hand that he had.
Back for some more provisions? Have a look around.
No, that TV is in New York, but thankfully no, my TV did not get destroyed, and so the TV was fine.
If you buy candy, keep it in a jar. Ants love that stuff.
I missed your comment. What was it, Isaiah? I'll do Black Ops 2 as a playthrough one day. Yeah, I know, the false advertising of Joel and Ellie. I know exactly what you mean.
I get all kinds of coots come in here. It's something.
It made it seem like Joel was gonna play a greater role than he actually did. No, it's my home in my apartment in the Midwest. Basically what happened was this guy that lives in the apartment above me. This happened last year. The guy, I was visiting my family in New York last summer. I live in the Midwest, for people wondering. But visiting my family in New York in the last summer. And what happened is I get a text message from my apartment, the management of the apartment, saying that the fire alarm is going off in my apartment. And I'm like, what the hell? Like, there's nothing, there's a fire in my apartment? What's going on? And so they gave them permission to go into my unit. There was no fire in my apartment. But the reason that the fire alarm was going off was because the guy that lives above me, what he did was he went to his bathroom and he left the sink running on the hottest water setting possible and just went on a Zoom call for 2 hours. I don't know how the hell that happened, but that's what happened. And what happened was the sink got overflowed because I think he had the plug in. The sink got overflowed and it ran for 2 hours, and his bathroom got literally flooded, and the hot water went through his floor and into my ceiling, went into my apartment. It went into the light that was actually right above my bed, short-circuited the light, and actually went into the fire alarm that was in the ceiling. So the hot water touched the fire alarm, and the fire alarm went off. And the fire, so the fire smoke detector, fire detector, that thing, it went off. And that thing, the fire detector, that thing is like really loud. Like when it goes off, it's loud. It's loud. The entire floor could like hear my fire detector thing going off. And so like it woke all my neighbors up. It was like, 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning. I think it was on a weekend too when it happened. But it was people got pissed at me, but it wasn't my fault because I literally it was the idiot that lived above me. But what happened is my bed got completely ruined. So like my bed was just soaking with the water from the from, my bed was just soaking from the water, and my comforter was basically destroyed. I had to get new pillows, so I got, the guy paid me, by the way, the guy who, caused the accident, so he paid me, he paid for his insurance, paid me out, they gave me a check, they paid out for a new bed. I got a new bed, I got a new comforter, I got new pillows and, you know, blankets and everything like that, so I did get compensation, I got compensated for it, but it was just an annoying experience that I went through, but, yeah, that happened. It was one of the craziest things ever. You hear about, you know, and the thing is, though, is I'm actually relieved that I was actually visiting my family, because literally right where the water hit is right where I was sleeping, and so this is, like, really hot water, too. So I can imagine I was sleeping at like 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning and the hot water just comes from the ceiling and on top of me. And so that wouldn't have been good. So there was just not a, yeah. That happened to me as well. My neighbor above me has their washer hose loose, and it flooded my kitchen floor. My new PC was soaked, and luckily my habit of unplugging things saved my life. Oh. Well, that was good then. I'm sorry that you went through that. Well, did your neighbor at least compensate you for that? Yeah, I know, Sesh Specialist. Yeah, I guess we're gonna wrap up the stream here. So thank you guys for hanging out with me. If you guys enjoyed the stream, do drop a like. If you guys enjoyed the stream, it does help me out a lot. And in 5 minutes, so literally 5 minutes from now, after the stream, the next part of Chinatown Wars will be up. So just check in 5 minutes. The next part of Chinatown Wars will be up. So I hope that everyone has a great weekend. Thank you guys for hanging out with me, and I will see you guys on the next one. Take care, guys. Have a wonderful day.